Ready? Call meeting to order. Review agenda for additional removal or adjustments of any items.
No changes this evening.
No changes. Public forum, opportunity citizens who are not on the agenda. Briefly share comments or concerns. Anybody here? Anybody there? All right, continue. Department head roundtable. Public Works, Eric. Working. Good job. All right.
So
Expand on that.
As you guys know, we got the sweeping all done.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
So on Farmwatch Farm, there was a couple residents who had complained clouds of dust. That was not normal, right? I thought that isn't the sweeper containing all of that? I mean, there's going to be some, but
there's going to be some.
Okay.
Regardless, no matter if we do it with, the only way that you would do it less that is if you had one of them back trucks.
Okay.
That suck it up as you're sweeping at the same time. But the reason we did it Thursday morning was because it was supposed to rain Friday.
Yeah.
And I knew that any dust that was going to be, all that fine stuff was going to be washed away. So they'd have to go through, a few hours of it in the morning getting blown off.
Yeah. Okay.
Eric, I did, speaking of that, I watched Middlebury do it this year. And they've got that same sweeper on the loader we had. And they took their chlorine truck, their tank, like we had, filled it with water and had a truck in front of it, just sprinkling water out a little bit, turned it on slow, just an idea.
It's an idea. The problem is we found that if we get stuff too wet, it'll break the cylinders that lift the hopper up the dump. They're not rugged enough if they're wet, if it's heavy. We've already done that.
Experiment.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why we were waiting. Yeah. Because they went to dump it and they shook it and it snapped it.
And it snapped one of them.
That's why it didn't all
Maybe
get done at the same
maybe
time.
dump it with a half.
Well, what it does is where the gutter broom picks up the gutter, so that side of the hopper is out. Then this side.
That makes sense.
When you
I
do that,
see.
it twists. Let's see what else is there. Just normal routine. We did a bunch of ditching and flushing of culverts there this week. Lincoln Road is going to get the top put on it sometime the week of the 16th. I don't have a confirmed date yet, but sometime that week.
Of June.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, of June. We've gone out, started our mowing, so we got the intersections done, started one pass on Mountain Road. So just, routine stuff right now.
And you're going to be working with Parks and Rec, do a little bit of work down at Sycamore.
We're going to do the mowing down at Sycamore, whenever he tells me ready to go.
Yeah, he was getting the plan together. You have the update for John's time to be able to do those two paths. But then, then he'll coordinate with you. Great.
We're working on a grant up on Upper Median. We started that last week. We started it.
What's it for?
Ditching and stoning.
Okay.
Back roads.
Right.
Yeah. Back
Right.
Better back rooms.
Grants.
Okay. Fantastic.
All right. Any questions for Eric?
Bruce is away this evening.
Okay. Fire, Brett.
Good evening. Can you hear me? You can't hear me.
Yes.
You can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Ian, can you hear me? All right.
Yes, we can.
Good evening. So as of today, June 9th, your fire department has responded to 50 calls for service, calendar year 25. I know it's on your agenda a little bit later, but I would like to acknowledge the resignation of firefighter PJ Ryan, who had 34 years of service with our department. Last week, June 4th, the fire department, we participated in the expanded learning programs intern fair at the high school. This is a follow-up to, I think, the last time I addressed you all regarding our junior firefighter program and our cooperation with the expanded learning program. So we're looking forward to getting that moving forward. Had quite a bit of interest, so that's exciting. I have submitted to the Vermont Fire Academy Bristol's annual recertification for FY 24-25 for our annual requirements. Always pleased to say that Bristol's firefighters meet those requirements, as 24 of your 29 firefighters do hold nationally recognized certifications in various levels. Let's see what else. We have registered to participate in the annual 4th of July parade. We're planning to provide standby coverage for the annual fireworks. Just wanted to mention, I have not yet seen the form that I know Bruce, the police chief, the town administrator, and the fire chief sign annually for the fireworks. So just put that out there. I haven't seen that yet. That's hard to believe. It's only a few weeks away. Ian, do you know anything about that?
I do not. It has not come across my desk.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they hadn't requested road closure yet either, so.
That's tonight.
Hopefully we'll see that soon.
Okay. Let's see. We, a small group of us, 5 or 6 of us, working group, we met with a vendor recently to go over specifications for the town's new rescue pumper, if you will. Haven't really decided on the name of it yet, but this is the vehicle that is scheduled to replace the town's 1993 mini pumper and 2001 heavy rescue unit. So more to come on that topic. I'm also very excited back to training. Officially on July 1st, we will transition from an hour-based training program to a competency and proficiency-based training program. We've been discussing this for years. A tremendous amount of work has been done behind the scenes to get this all ready, but everybody seems to be on board. It's just, you know, as I've said before, I'm sure you've heard me all say this, hours don't measure anything but time. So having a competency and proficiency-based training program, you know, will ensure that Bristol's firefighters are meeting their requirements and are trained to the level we expect them to be trained at to provide the services that Bristol's residents expect them to provide. And then lastly, I'd just like to say again, you've heard me talk a lot about the Conex Box training structure. It officially went online back in May 14th. We utilized it for both of our May trainings, and it is tentatively scheduled for both our June 11th and 25th trainings this month. It's just, you can't express enough how much this adds to our training program, to have a place that you can work in, you know, deploy your tools and your equipment and not worry about damaging anything. It's really exciting. And again, it's one of a kind training structure, and a big shout out to those who were involved in this and making this all happen and seeing it come to fruition. So pending any questions from you all, those are my updates.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, you're safe. Water and sewer.
Jill is not on tonight, but I have an update from her.
Okay.
On the water side, the full water read is in process, or the full water read is in process. Please make sure the touch pads are accessible. June water bills will be mailed out later this month with the 2024 water quality report linked to the posting on the town's website. South Street will have 1-lane traffic this Wednesday, June 11th, for a water service repair. 2 meter repair tickets were completed today, and 2 new water connections were turned on with full new meter sets, touchpads, and wires. On the sewer side, June sampling is in process at both the sewer field and at select manholes. Cell 1 is scheduled for septic tank sludge pumping out on June 25th per request for the engineering inspection. Cell 2 will be scheduled in September to allow for the next financial year budget to accumulate income before the expense. And that's for water and sewer.
Okay. Onward, consent agenda, unless you have anything urgent that you need to touch on? Okay. Consent agenda, special event and street use closure for 4th of July. Approved curb cut application at 63 Basin Street, approved work in the right of way. Access permit for Hillside Drive lot number 2. Approve purchase of new laptop and accessories for the town administrator using technology fund, technology reserve fund. Approve update Sycamore Park quote from John Swenson. And Bristol Fire Department resignation from PJ Ryan. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second. Then I have questions.
Motion and a second, and on with your questions, Michelle.
The Hillside Drive lot, Eric can answer this. This is a separate driveway from then the, what I think is a shared driveway up there. Is that right, Eric?
Yes.
Okay. And then I have a question on the new laptop. Didn't we just buy a laptop? I know it's not an Apple, but didn't we just buy a laptop for Val just before she left?
Yeah.
So why are we buying a Mac, which doesn't match any of the other ones that are in the office?
It's what the incoming town administrator requested.
Okay, so I mean, I guess if we didn't just buy one, I wouldn't have a problem, but I feel like we're spending money that's not necessary, I guess.
Have we got somewhere for that other newer computer to go to replace one that might be failing?
We just
Or do
replaced
we
Sharon's.
want to keep it, or keep that in mind so that when one does
The
fail,
oldest one
that,
in the group here, whichever department's got it, move it in, is that what you're thinking? Big?
well, I don't want it to just
Right.
get
Sit
brushed
there.
aside, and
I
then,
mean,
like Michelle says, if somebody else has a computer that fails in 6 months, we've got this one that
Yes.
we just need to remember it's there, I guess.
I think it's about a year old, the one that Val had. It's similar to this.
Right.
In terms of the tough book configuration. I mean, it could swap out this because this is a pretty old machine and we use this one a lot. I know it struggles sometimes. But also just to have a spare one that we could hand out to people if needed, I think is a useful thing.
My only concern is like we have, and I believe all the rest of them are all the same. They're all Dell laptops, and now what are we going to move everybody to the Macs or?
No, it's just a preference for. I think he's just more familiar than incoming town administrator with that system. And so we have a combination. So we have the rec department, they're on Mac laptops. Most of the computers down here are Windows, primarily driven because of familiarity with that operating system, as well as software that is mainly Windows only. But in terms of my working for the last 6 months or 5 months, I'm on Mac. And everything, I could access everything. The only thing
I was just gonna ask that question.
yeah, Nemrick was the outlier, and they have an ability just to do it through a web browser, so you can access that. But there's nothing, talking to Sharon and Chris, there's nothing that the incoming administrator would need to access that it's Windows only, as far as I'm aware.
Were you able to access the in the cloud stuff on your Mac?
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they had yeah.
Okay. I know that was the one thing that.
Yes, there was, apart from, we found a client for that, but again, we may, in time, move to another system, but there's nothing that I was aware of that needed to have a Windows machine. But it's good to have spare. I mean, they do go down. But it's your choice. I just felt like familiarity, I think, is a big part. I know that I can set up the machine and have it ready to go when the new administrator starts. But it would be up to you or up to the board.
And that's the one, because I just want to be clear that I have no ability to support that Mac.
And that's fine.
Season house currently the best I can, but
Right.
Mac support whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, ideally, you're not doing any tech support. We're paying someone to do that, which is the best way, but I know that it's hard to do. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you've never been expected to support the Macs that the rec department have. All members of the rec department use Mac laptops. So it's just, we have a mix here.
I mean,
So
I
who
was thinking-
services the Macs?
Generally, they don't need to be serviced.
Mm-hmm.
They're slightly less susceptible to viruses and malicious kind of software, stuff
Right.
like that.
Yep. Mhm.
But generally, if on both sides, everything usually hums along fairly decently, I think,
Yeah.
both with Windows and Mac. And I don't know if Meredith and Aiden, I don't think have they ever come to you in terms of having, so.
They've asked questions and it was in my answer the other day, I'm like, I got no idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy. I mean,
Yeah, it's either put it to Ian or put it to.
yeah, I'm fine with doing that. I understand that we're a Windows office here, but I know that people like to use other machines, and I'm happy to support that in any way I can. I put that out there. Not that I want to do it all the time, but it's pretty minimal, I think, in terms of that kind of support. If everything is working smoothly, so I don't have concern with that.
Okay, so that's the laptop.
I just have
Yeah,
a question back
okay.
on Hillside Drive paper.
Yep.
So is that, he's got all site distance?
You will.
So this working right away or driveway?
Both. They're supposed to be both.
Yeah.
So
It
it
is,
says,
it's right away access permit.
says working right away.
He's got one maple that he's gotta cut down to get
Yeah.
the site distance going down the hill, but going up the hill, he's got plenty.
Okay.
Okay.
Questions on the Basin Street curb cut? Questions on road closure for the 4th of July?
Yes, I asked, so this is a new form that we made since we didn't really have a form before. And so, and Cecil was here at last meeting, and so I sent this to him to fill it in. I asked about the liability insurance, naming the town as additional insured. He has said that it's usually covered by the town and has been for many, many years. And so Sharon and I followed up with VLCT about that. And there doesn't seem to be that kind of coverage for that kind of event. And so I think they would probably need to get their own insurance for that, because they're not a town committee. It's its own organization. So they would probably need to get insurance, which would be an additional cost to them.
Which would be an additional cost to us.
Right.
Well, I mean,
No, seriously, they're
gonna add it on
they're
next
gonna
year.
add it on next year if they. I mean,
right, I mean, obviously that organization has an appropriation, as many
Right.
do. And so it's only that appropriation is only a small amount of their budget, especially given the cost of fireworks nowadays.
Ian, VLCT can't do any kind of rider for them? I mean, because there was somebody else that they got the insurance through VLCT, through the town, but it was like a separate sub policy. Now I can't remember who it was.
I don't know if it's VLCT, but Core would purchase separate insurance through a group, and it had special pricing. The town was in there, and it's a certain area of the town, which is the main downtown area, and you could select that and then pay. You type in how many people would come to the event, and then you'd have insurance for that. And I think for Pocock, it's like 300 or 400, I think.
Mhm.
But I don't know if VLCT offers anything.
Well, they have the TULIP program.
Right, so that's what it is. Okay, yeah.
TULIP program.
Okay.
You can go in and get a 1-day,
So
4-hour.
Would
So
they
we
be
could
able
either-
to do that?
they
Sharon?
can do that, or we can do that. We would have to make a choice what we wanted to do.
And part of me says to keep it clean, let's have them do it. And they're just gonna ask for the money in their appropriation later if it's too much.
Right, it's generally like maybe under $500 to insure the entire event. It's just
Well,
that,
they'll have the night of the 3rd and,
And the
well, they
parade.
can probably cover that in that 24 hours.
yes, and we think the 3rd might be different because it's not on town property. And so I don't know how they handle insurance with the school. It might be a separate.
But we do insure the rec field. I gotta think about that. We do.
Yeah, the rec club is part of the VLC gets it.
Yeah, and that's where the,
That was the one
I
Michelle
mean,
was
it's on
thinking.
both, yeah, people are on the rec field, but the fireworks are on school
I can't
Land.
believe the school doesn't.
Okay.
Hey,
can
Joel,
put it
does the
still in
rec
the
club,
back.
does the rec club get their insurance through the town,
Yeah,
through the LCP?
yeah.
Yes, they
That's-
do.
Okay, that's maybe that's what I was thinking of.
Okay, I think it would be. The VLCT sent a form in terms of ensuring large parade kind of events, and there are a lot of stipulations on that as a group you would need to meet. I don't know if the July 4th committee is aware of that form. I think if we decide to insure, either we would buy the separate insurance that would cover all of that, or they would do it independently.
And they're also guidelines.
Right, the guidelines are there, and we need to make sure those are followed if they do it, and the same if you bought the separate insurance. It's
So
clean.
we've been having the 4th of July parade for how many years and they've never had insurance?
I mean, it's possible, yes. We've always felt, I mean, because it's just been a holdover for how many decades that
Right.
it's covered under the town, and it's just been passed from board to board, and clerk and administrator to administrator. So it's just, but it's one of those things where we want to make sure that it's covered. We don't want anything happening.
Mhm.
And so it's probably, I mean, it's up to us whether we would explore it. I don't know if you're the municipality, if you can get tulip insurance, or if it has to be like a nonprofit or an outside group. That's something we would need to check. So I wouldn't want to say that we could take it on without being absolutely certain. Yeah. Okay.
Person that sent me the information to begin with and
Yeah.
see if there's some kind
Yeah.
of short-term guide
yes.
that we put on our policy.
Okay, so let's find that out, and then we can bring that, we can work with them, but I think approving this tonight is fine.
Yeah.
But we just want to make sure.
No, I don't think we're gonna stop.
No.
No.
Yeah, so we have that, the computer purchase, and then we have an updated estimate from John Swepston. The estimate that he provided last week was for one of the paths. And in the discussion, we were talking about two of the paths. He's updated his quote, which adds another $960 to the $1,440 or whatever it was, which I think is a pretty good amount. I think having both of those done is
And he
beneficial.
said that was all by the hour if it took like.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So we have that, and then, those for the consent.
And then, exception of,
Yes.
accepting PJ Ryan's letter, I've got tongue tied tonight. Letter of resignation with regret.
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah, I
thank
just
him
want
for
to, I
his-
mean, I don't know a lot of the firefighters who do resign, but I want to thank PJ. He's put a lot of time and effort into our community doing that. So thank you, PJ.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, PJ.
All right. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. Motion passed. Hi, Jessica.
Hello. Good
Hey
morning.
Jessica, how's everything in China?
It's okay. We entered the rainy season, so
Oh.
it's raining all the
We haven't
time.
gotten out of it.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten out of it yet here.
I know, that's
Every
true.
weekend,
Just
just
prepping
one
you,
day.
prepping you to come home.
That's right.
All right. Harvey Road feasibility study, local concerns meeting. Mike Winslow and Natalie,
Mostly Natalie.
mostly Natalie.
Yeah, and I've given Natalie. good
All right.
evening. I've given you co-host permission, so you can share your screen if necessary.
Great,
Uh,
thank you. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I will share my screen. We have a short presentation.
Fantastic.
And then just one question of, additional stakeholders who are in attendance tonight, just to kind of get an inventory of that.
Yeah, I'm not sure who we have. Is anyone here? Tasha, what's your name, sir?
Ed
Ed?
Ed Mayor,
Mayor? Okay.
Mayor.
He was right at
Anyway.
the top of the road.
Okay, great. We have Tasha Ball here from the Willowell organization.
Okay, great.
Aaron Thomas is on there too, and that's.
Oh, Aaron Thomas. Okay, that's who that is. Hi, Aaron. Okay. So let me give a little bit of background. I just gotta get, so. Second, before you start, Natalie, so. There. Getting there. Get the detail that AZ sent out on this, just so I can get the details right. Where the heck was that?
Just a question on screen. Is my screen visible?
Yep.
Is it a single presentation or is it a presentation in a Word document?
It's just the presentation.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay, so here we go. Okay, so this meeting is essentially, we're looking at Harvey Road and we're wanting to make potential changes from a class 4 road to a class 3 town highway. And the reason the town is looking at this and is having this feasibility study is the idea is that with the new Willow Well Foundation School on a piece of land that's past Harvey Road, we're experiencing traffic volumes are becoming higher. And there's also potential for new development in the same area. And by changing the classification of the road, it allows us to make improvements and also open up the ability to get different kinds of funding for that road. And so that's why we're looking at this. And part of the scope of this is looking at the bridge, which serves a lot of the houses along that stretch.
There's all the houses on that stretch.
Well, there's one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the farmers at the front.
We have done there on Harvey Road.
Yeah.
Do you come off Harvey Road?
Yeah, his driveway's off Harvey.
Yeah, right, there's one on the left, yeah. Okay, so that's my little bit, and now we'll have Natalie sort of go through. We've had a couple meetings, we've been in person, looked at the road, and they've taken their inventory and things like that. So now we're just on to a local concerns meeting. Just to
Yep,
keep
okay.
people informed.
Yep, so I'm Natalie, I'm a project engineer with Fuss and O'Neill. So I'm kind of running the day-to-day on this project. So we'll just go with a brief introduction. Our project location is, as mentioned, pretty much the entire stretch of Harvey Road that we're looking at, up to, I think, the divide where the Willow Well School that was mentioned is. The project team is Fuss and O'Neill, the RPC, and the town of Bristol together working on this. We performed several site visits in the past couple of months, some to just investigate the overall conditions in the road. So just a few photos taken from these different visits, showing the road, which the road is roughly 16 to 17 feet, give or take, as you go along it. And then recently we did perform a bridge inspection, both just for the understanding of the structure that's there. And then also, as we were there, we did, evaluate and look at the condition of the bridge in general, as we tend to do if we just happen to be in the area. So currently we're a class 4, and then the approximate width is 16 feet. There are utilities along there, just like some aerial cable electric telephone. Coming to the bridge width is also 16 feet. The length is 42.5 feet. Per V-Trans, the original construction was in 1919. Then some reconstruction occurred somewhere in the 2000 to 2002 years, although we do not have the official records for that work. But as you can see from the photo, we could just tell by looking at it how it is. There's really nothing hiding in there. So it was a very easy inspection. And then, as mentioned, the Willow Well Foundation and the potential 15 lot subdivision were kind of the catalysts for this project, or for this potential project. So results of bridge inspection, everything's fine, nothing to worry about. So, some typical spalling and section loss that would be, more than appropriate for the age and the location of this structure. Both abutments are sound, although there is some cracking and spalling, and the east abutment is leaking water. Again, none of these are safety concerns. They're just kind of observations of the condition, and you can see some of that in these photos here. But overall, the existing bridge is it's fine, and it's doing what it's supposed to do. So no cause for alarm or anything in there. Moving on to a little bit about the class 3 versus the class 4 classification, which I'm sure most people are aware of. Anything not 1 through 3 is a 4. And then the legal definition of the class 3 is negotiable under normal conditions, all seasons of the year by a standard manufactured pleasure car. That has to have sufficient surface and base, adequate drainage, and the key here being sufficient width for winter maintenance. So we are right now, this meeting is the last of a series of exercises that we've done to collect existing information. So moving out of this meeting, collecting any additional information that we receive tonight or receive in follow-up, we will be moving forward with development of alternatives. And in terms of what we're looking at kind of on a general scale, for the class 3, I think we would want to see a wider roadway, comfortable, 2 vehicles passing each other without having to pull over or anything like that. That will require, long-term utility relocation in some of the spots where the poles are quite close to the road. And then we would be looking at, potential surface upgrades, minor geometry improvements, anything along that line for the roadway. Obviously, the bigger component is the bridge. And so based on our observation and evaluation, this is not eligible for rehabilitation or superstructure replacement. The abutments kind of just fit what's there, and we would be looking at a larger superstructure in a proposed condition. So that's going to warrant a full replacement of the structure. The bridge width could be 1 lane, it could be 2 lanes. Again, it's that passable with the winter maintenance vehicle. That's really the critical element towards the definition of the class 3. And then one thing that I think we're going to look at, which is going to be a great benefit, is that over time, Little Notch Brook has definitely migrated, which is a fancy way of saying it's slightly changed its path. And the one abutment is basically taking direct flow on now. It's kind of in the water. So we would be looking at the ability with a replacement to realign the abutments to better match the current stream configuration. And then in that case, reducing the potential scour erosion type situation that it is present today, not in any serious nature. But the other thing is we do not know what the substructure is underneath the abutment. We don't know if it's spread footings. We don't know how deep they are. That information is just not known. So obviously putting a large new superstructure on top of that is not recommended.
Natalie, can I ask a question? The current bridge, do you know what the weight limit is? And then I'm just thinking, if the development, you got 15 lots out there, they're going to be bringing in, wood and that from wood supplies. Is it going to be able to handle that increase currently?
Because we don't have any information on the upgrades that were performed in the, previously in the roughly around the year 2000, we couldn't do any kind of load rating on the bridge. And again, also not knowing, what's below the abutment. I believe based on the information out there that those upgrades which happened at the time were to facilitate moving materials across that bridge for some other homes which were constructed.
Yeah, it was done to get concrete trucks across the bridge, and the bridge was designed by Dop and Dop, but then it was built by a local steel fabrication outfit, so it never ended up with a official rating.
Any guess?
I'm assuming that it's gotta be right around 100,000 if they were running concrete trucks across it, if that's the reason for it.
So our fire trucks can go over it?
They have,
Yeah, I
our
know.
plow trucks go over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tandem truck loader goes across it with a plow, so.
Do we,
And I know that, you know, when Aaron did the development up there, there were hundreds of loads of material that went across that bridge, so I don't think there's any fears of it ending up in the river.
do we know who owns the bridge?
Aaron's father built it. I don't know,
Right.
and then I think he gave it to us.
Did we ever
But we
accept it?
we don't own the whole, I mean, I was just looking at the picture that Natalie put up. Are we planning on upgrading the whole road to the Willow Well, or are we just talking to our section that we own?
Just our section to the top of the hill.
Down to the bridge?
So the
No,
project
from
area
116, go down across the
Is it-
bridge, then go up the other side, just as you get to, just about to the crest of the hill, that's where ours ends.
Up
So
where
this whole
that- up
project
where that-
area,
That
this whole
Y
project
is?
area she has is that too far down? Or is that right?
That's
That's
right.
right.
Yeah,
Up
that's
to-
where,
up to
that's where
here, up
our,
to this.
that's where our road ends.
Our,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm gonna tell my age here a little bit, but when I was dating my wife 45 years ago, her sister lived at that A-frame right at the hill, right at the end of the bridge.
Yep.
And that was a little rinky
yep,
one-lane bridge.
Yep.
And that was, you guys picked the plow up and plowed past the driveway and, well, you plowed to the bridge and buffed the thing and then either backed out or. Well, the single one-ton went across. to
Yeah, the one ton went across, I used to plow that.
Yeah,
yeah.
and then you turned around just beyond her driveway. And now everything, so that's, so that was where I think class 4 ended, right, just past her.
No, class 4 went all the way, that's all we maintained.
That's
How you maintain.
Yeah,
So it's still class 4 up to the
Yeah.
project area,
yes.
okay.
So is it still class 4 all the way through? Because people have bought on the other end, that used to connect to Carlson.
Carlson Road, yes.
I don't know if it is all the way through or if it's
There's-
down.
I
know there
believe,
was,
I believe Peaker, there's still a right of way or an easement through there.
I think it was classified under your and Ken Weston's area, when, remember the towns had you, either you call them a road or call them trails?
no, we,
Thought you abandoned that after it turned and went towards Harvey Road, I thought you guys not abandoned it, just called it a trail. That would have to be some research.
I can tell you the Greg Forest Trust sold that property and I believe there's still an easement in there, but I don't really remember off the top of my head.
cause I know when the people built on the end of, on the corner on Carlson Road, they were worried about it. And I believe we told them that wasn't ever going back in.
That doesn't mean we still don't have a right of way.
Yeah, well.
I mean, going back in as a town project, but it could go as a private owner who owns that road.
Not if we have the right of way and nobody else does.
Right.
It's not listed on the V-Trans highway map as either class 4 or a legal trail. It just goes
Yeah, see, I,
1 miles from 116 and that's it.
yeah, I think everything that wasn't being traveled, we let go.
All right. All right, Natalie.
Sorry, Nan.
No, that's okay. Very, very helpful information. So the project schedule that we're working with here, we have performed our kickoff meeting back in March. We performed our field investigations, roadway and bridge. Today we are having what we call our local meeting, and so then we will be developing alternatives for presentation in July. We're looking at the draft report in August and final report and recommendations in September. Okay, and that's all that I really have. As I said, this is kind of a fact-finding follow-up for me. For any information beyond this, I've noted this discussion about the limits of the class 4. Is there anything else that anybody can give me in terms of history, interesting information?
That would be Joel and Peaker.
Well, like I said, it was 80s, 79 and 80 when they built that A-frame down there. Was her I'll say her boyfriend or significant other, but they were never married, had two kids together, boys, and their parents, his parents owned that piece of land and they built an A-frame down there but her car burned in the 80s and we never put a fire truck across that, old bridge.
Yeah.
We said that car ain't worth that fire truck going in the pond. I'm not saying the new bridge is,
Oh, we've been across.
you've been across the new one.
With the tanker.
With a tanker, yeah. Yeah.
So there was one of the slides that had the question of whether it's a 1 or 2 lane bridge, and I know that Eric, we've spoken about your suggestion having it be a 2 lane. That's what we'd like.
That's what I would prefer.
Do we want an alternate with 1 lane, or prefer not to look at that?
I mean, the only thing with a 1 lane is you're gonna have to sign it and then either. Or put lights up to control the traffic, which who goes when,
Yeah,
one way or the other. And then my only concern is with the more traffic, with the more development that goes down there. Hopefully everybody will get along and they'll let each one go through, but if you get one person that I'm not stopping and, and.
Yeah.
That's why I would like just a 2 lane bridge.
Okay.
Or a multi-plate or something.
Okay.
So
Well, then you have to worry about easements or purchasing additional property for that. Because I don't remember, I mean, I know Aaron's dad and somebody else owned this initially and they did some flip-flopping for the roadway because they moved it at one point. Is there concerns about we having to buy additional property or getting rights away or whatever?
I guess I'll ask the elephant in the room question here.
Well, hold on. Natalie, do you have a comment on that in terms of additional?
I just noted it for something for us to look into as an additional
super.
concern. I mean, the main, roadway, I would say definitely not, but if there's anything interesting with the right of way by the bridge, then, we would have to look into that a little more.
I mean, maybe it's best to do both, because there are ways to mitigate a single lane of traffic. Obviously, there's probably a significant cost involved with replacing the entire bridge. I mean, it seems like it's not salvageable if we wanted to do either way, 2 lane or a single lane. And so we'd have to see what the cost difference is. So maybe keeping in both, just so we have the comparison.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say to the 1 lane is it is going to keep your speed low. So just something to keep in mind, that once you open up to 2 lanes, you do open up the possibility of higher than desired speeds.
Okay.
Besides, I mean, the benefit of having all that development down there is it increases the grand list and that's good for the taxes and things. But what is the benefit for the town making this from a class 4 if we turn this into a class 3 road? Does all this cost of widening the road and the bridge go to the public works budget?
I mean, it would be similar to what it is now, that there would be increased costs more than likely.
No, to do all the work, to widen it out, ditch it, and does that increase?
Who's gonna pay for the infrastructure?
Who's gonna pay for this infrastructure?
The idea is that we open up for bigger pots of money available for a class 3 versus a class 4. And we would get grant funding.
You're being a politician, you're working around the question, who is gonna pay for widening and fixing the road to make it a class 3?
We would pay with grant funded projects. That's the only way we'd be able to look at it.
I know we can't afford to put a
You're
bridge.
saying,
Oh, no, I know. Yeah, it's not expected that this is coming out of our capital road
Operating
fund.
budget.
Yes, it's not. It would just be, we'd have the information to go forth to be able to pursue grant funding to support a project like this, but there will be a significant cost associated with it.
so
And
Ian,
could
you're
it-
saying there's gonna be
Hold on,
grants?
hold on, I'm sorry.
No,
She went.
Michelle.
You're saying there's gonna be grants, you think there's gonna be grants available for us to actually construct the road?
Unknown, but Mike, I don't know.
Wouldn't expect so.
Okay.
so
Could this development and the school go and do their projects on a class 4 road.
Can they, you're asking Joel if
Keeping
they
it as
can,
it is.
Yeah,
Create
keeping it
their
the way it
projects?
is, we continue to plow it and grade it, like we have been, I guess. We
It's the
plow it.
only class 4 road we maintain.
Right, we don't do the one up in the upper notch, that goes from a class 3 to a class 4, and we pick up the cost.
There's 2 up there. that we
There's
maintain.
2 up there, and just so, but could the project, 16 houses, I guess that's the number, and Willowell, could they continue with their projects and operate on a class 4 road?
More than likely, yes.
I was gonna say, the state didn't require them to upgrade the road, so they got their permits.
On top of that is you'd be getting state aided money if it was class 3.
We couldn't get
Well,
enough state
you
aid
don't-
money in 100 years to pay what the infrastructure will cost and move it to a
No,
class
it's-
3, I don't think. I'm just saying that.
Well, a lot of that stuff we can do in-house. The biggest thing that we can't do would be, like Peter said, it's gonna be the bridge. That'd be the biggest cost, but as far as the banks, the ditching, the graveling. You know, we can do all that in-house. But yeah, I mean, the bridge is gonna be the biggest expense on that whole project. That was just a thought. So that's why we're doing the study to see if it would be
Yeah.
feasible enough to do it or not.
Yeah, we're not committing, this is just a study, we're not committing to
No,
anything.
I understand.
But it just gives us more information going forward.
But if we did all that and we could do it in-house, and that's great, and you really cut the cost down and very little money or some money, gravel and things and culverts. And then say, okay, we've made it a class 3 with the exception of the bridge. Or they say, oh, you made it a class 3, now you're taking ownership of the bridge and when it needs to replace the taxpayer.
Well, we have to anyway.
If we make it a class 3.
No,
Yeah.
we're liable for
Yeah.
bridges and culverts on class 4 roads.
Yeah.
So that bridge,
Okay,
Yeah.
we have to maintain and stuff down
okay,
there
you know that, thank you,
Yeah.
that,
with no money from the state.
Yeah, so it is that we'd be getting some, right, and potentially grant funded, so,
Well,
I know.
for the bridge, you might be able to get a structures grant, you can get little pieces of that.
Yeah.
But for the road upgrades
Right.
themselves, that's, no.
That would be something that we'd have to budget a little bit year by year.
Yeah.
Do little sections, you know,
yeah.
if you guys even wanted to do it.
Right.
So this is, like Ian said, this is just a feasible study to see if it's something worth pursuing.
Yeah. And also, you seem to be great at finding bridges and stuff like that, so we're relying on you to.
can't find one that side.
So Natalie, this will basically give us a plan when you're all done.
Yeah, I'd like to see her.
Yeah, and I mean, a no build is also an alternative. So I mean, there's, that is part of it as well. So, to do nothing will be, included as at least an alternative that was, listed.
They were asked, what would it take to make it, to go from class 4 to class 3?
Oh, okay.
It's still up to you to decide whether that's worth doing.
And I know, well, I passed 2 of them in New Haven when I drive school bus. On a class 3 road with 1-lane bridges, and it's okay, you were there first, go.
Yeah.
So to speak, it was the HN.
Yeah, I mean,
Dorset Street's got a 1-lane bridge on it.
yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, but it'll be our choice, but at least we'll have a clear idea of what it might cost.
Right, and I think
Yeah.
the formal
the-
process is internal to the town as well, the actual formal designation.
And the 2 bridges in New Haven don't have signs and don't have a red light and,
Yeah.
you can see HN and go ahead.
Okay. Anything else on our end here for Natalie?
Anything from the neighbors about things that Natalie should know in terms of in doing her investigation?
Yeah.
You've been here a
Concerns?
long time, Ed.
No, I just, widening it up on the top part there, you got that bunker silo there, that's right next to the road.
Yeah.
And you got a power pole on the other side, but she had photos of both of those right at the beginning.
That's a pinch point right there. Yep, that's very tight.
Yeah,
I guess the only thing I would add is with the last flood, that water got pretty close to that top of that bridge. I was worried we were going to. So.
Oh, I remember it was a couple feet inside that A-frame a few times. The water used to be a couple feet and a foot inside it.
they had,
Underneath the lid.
I had a bunch more.
Yeah.
Couple years ago.
There.
It got, so there was, we were gonna have to cancel school for a few days.
Yeah.
Or however long it takes to put a temp fridge back up.
Not more than a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not gonna give you a temp fridge there.
I mean, I think we did cancel school because of the flinch.
Ian, quick question.
Yeah,
Since it's a class 4 road, if something happened to the bridge, the town would be on the hook for that. If it was a class 3 road, would FEMA be able to jump in if the bridge got washed out or damaged?
Yes.
That's a good question.
A class 4 road, it won't, right?
And right, as soon as it still exists, yeah.
yes, if FEMA still exists, then I think
Right.
they would handle a class 3, but not a class 4.
Okay.
No, take that back.
Okay,
FEMA will handle a class 4 on a bridge, because Starkville went through that up on, Brown Hill.
oh, okay,
They put a bridge in up there, a new one for,
2
through.
years ago, yeah.
Yeah, through Otter Creek Engineering or something.
okay,
So yes, FEMA will cover a class 4 bridge. Won't cover any of the road structure,
yeah,
Right.
but will do the
Okay.
bridge.
not that we're hoping it's gonna wash out, but.
No.
I was just asking
Yeah.
a question.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Natalie.
Okay,
Thank you,
great.
Mike.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Appreciate it.
All right, appreciate your time tonight.
You did all the heavy lifting, so you're good to go.
We write the checks.
All right,
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Have a good
Thank
night.
Review and approval of MERP and ARPA Architectural and Engineering Services proposal for Holly Hall and Lawrence Memorial Library.
Thank you, Tasha.
thanks, Tasha. Thanks, Ed.
Exactly.
Okay. So. let me Share this. Okay. So we have these two projects, which is our capital building projects. We have the MERP one, which is associated with Holly Hall renovation work and energy efficiency improvements. And then we also have, at the same time, we received a grant, ARPA-based grant for the Lawrence Memorial Library. When we received the MERP report, to flesh it out, the Regional Planning Commission hired Vermont Integrated Architecture to sort of flesh out that report to get more usable numbers than what the MERP report could provide. So VIA worked with Bristol for a few weeks with Ashley Nelson as our lead and contact person, and they gave us a couple of options of what it might look like for Holly Hall's renovation. Those were like a $500,000 option and a $575,000 option. And that was, we picked the one that was essentially gutting all of the insides of the building, put in new insulation, things like that. So the next point was sort of on Astor's suggestion was sort of maybe reaching out, and not maybe, but we did reach out to design build firms. We reached out to 4 of them to see if they would take on the project as a whole and include the Memorial Library in there as well. So pitching it like $1 million project. It's about, we got 543 for the library, meaning it was 475 for the Holly Hall. The $1 million project, unfortunately, we weren't successful in engaging a design build firm. So we went back to Asher to see if VIA had availability with this, because they had familiarity with the project already being on through the Regional Planning Commission and the work that they've done themselves as an agency or an architecture firm with buildings of this nature, not just new buildings, but older buildings and renovations. We felt that they were a very good fit. They had availability in their schedule. They spent a few weeks sort of working on this, and they revised their report that they had done for us. The report they did, I have to say, was very good, but it was very quick. They only had a few weeks to put this together. So they fleshed that out and they've included the library. So essentially what this presentation is, or what this report is just a proposal, is everything that we want to do with the 2 buildings, they would be under that. They would produce all the drawings, all the work with contractors, or engage contractors, work with outside engineers to be able to size the systems, things like that. So that's where we're at the moment. So obviously that's the team, and what they're looking to do is, I'll just sit through this. So we've got structural engineering through Engineering Ventures, and we have Du Bois and King who are doing the energy sort of engineering side of things. And then this is their scope of work. So they'll do various phases from the pre-design and the planning all the way through to managing the construction side of things as well. So this was sent in the packet, so hopefully folks have had a look at it. We've sent this to a bunch of different people, both members of the Energy Committee, the town staff here, for people to have a look at. We got a few comments back and forth that we sent to them. They answered those questions. And I think we're ready to hopefully have the select board look at this and approve this so we can move forward on these two projects.
And are these numbers the same as to what they sent us before?
It's a little bit, yes. So they're working with the numbers that they had proposed for the two for their project. They included what the grant was for the library project, and that's what they're working on in terms of their construction numbers. And then they have their own number that's part of that, which would be for their services, which is in this report. So essentially, as I said, it's sort of phase one is the pre-design and planning. Phase two, schematic designs and pricing, design development, construction documents, and then bidding and negotiations, and then construction administration. So their price is detailed here. So we have the estimated construction total is up here. It's $925 with the two projects.
Thank you.
So it's sort of estimated Holly Hall construction cost $450, estimated library cost $475. So that's our estimated, and again, this is just estimated. And then we have the pricing for VIA's work. And this is the breakdown of what they're looking at, sort of June through July and August.
So I guess my question is there numbers figured into that project cost?
Yes.
The construction cost, the numbers they have in here are included in that.
Yes, but that's not to say that those numbers aren't going to change.
Right. No, I understand that.
I expect they will.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the estimate, and what they're presenting is sort of, and again, it's like their cost is just an estimated. So their total proposed fee is 118. So it's 12.8% of their 925 construction cost.
So
and the library
118 for both Holly Hall and the library.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, their original cost was, can't remember exactly what it was. I think it was in I think it was 86,000. That was what their cost was for Holly Hall. So it's 118 now, incorporating the library to that. There are a lot of similarities with the two projects, especially the systems design. So having the engineering side where you can engage to subcontractors to
rewrite the whole book.
Exactly.
They move up the street.
Yeah, there's more construction work for this building than there is the library. There is some construction of the library, but there's also other elements like outside of the library, things like that, which is different from here. A lot of it's mostly internal for Holly Hall. We didn't, because of timing and because of familiarity, we didn't put this out to bid, publicly. We sort of kept it internal and wanted to engage VIA just because we'd worked with them for the regional planning and they had a very good understanding of the project. And because we were sort of unsuccessful with engaging a design build firm, we felt this was a better way to be able to move this forward. Our deadline for these, because both grants are ARPA money based, is the end of December of next year. The idea and the plan all along was after town meeting next year, 2026, it would be a 6-month construction for Holly Hall, and we would apply the same for the library as well. And that's not to say you couldn't do elements sooner than that, depending on what they develop for the systems and things.
The way construction goes, you think 6 months is enough?
Why no? That's it too. So there is some wiggle room potentially with the MERP money, being able to sort of have not everything completed in time, but be able to have
Pay
that
that
money still
upfront
available.
money, use up the ARPA money first.
Potentially, yes.
Or
I'm
do you
not,
have to be done?
yeah. I'm not sure about the library money. It is the same pool of money, it's just different organizations handling that, so we could find out about that.
When you say everyone, you're talking from elsewhere, not our.
Sorry, yes, yeah, it just happened to be the library grant was ARPA funds from, that the
The Holly
state.
Hall funds would be the same concept elsewhere.
Yes, the MERP money was its own thing, but I think both were sourced from ARPA money that originally came to the state.
Yeah, that was through BGS, the MERP.
Yes. So that's where we're at. I think they're a very good fit. I think Asher has done, in the short amount of time that he had to do the original quote, put a lot of good work in. I think they have a very good understanding. They've answered all our questions in terms of that we had for this proposal, but the nice thing, it includes everything. I mean, there are two very large projects that we don't really have familiarity with in terms of this kind of work. And so having an organization, having an architecture firm that is very familiar with this work, that is handling everything, I think is very beneficial for us.
And the construction side may, or at least stay the same if it was the same builder on both.
Yes, and that's
Because
the
each day,
idea.
Okay, that crew, you're done, you can, you know.
Yeah,
we got some
there's
stuff-
still a lot of unknowns
Right.
on that, but they're hoping, their plan is to engage contractors that they've had relationships with before. So perhaps the design build firms that we reached out to who didn't want to handle the entire thing, like VIA is proposing to do.
If they've got a design,
That's
they'll
right.
do it.
Yes, and I was told by one of the design build firms, like, yeah, when you have a plan for this, come back to us. So it's just something that they weren't able to take on for any number of reasons. You know, some might be not wanting to do or not familiar with municipality work versus home construction, things like that, or different kinds of projects. Some are just the size of the design build firms. You know, we went with local build firms that were here in Bristol or nearby. And it was just one of those things where unfortunately we weren't able to engage someone, but we want to keep this project moving, obviously, because we have this fairly firm deadline. So yeah, this has been looked at by a bunch of different people. We had good comments, but everyone thinks it's a good proposal. We felt that the cost estimates were good. And it does cover everything that we need to be done for these two projects. And so if we agreed to accept this tonight, they would move forward, start the meetings, and start the process of putting this all together for us.
Well, we're kind of shoehorned into it. I mean, it's not, we couldn't find anybody else. This was the route we decided to go. So if we want to continue.
We're really if I make the motion, we're approving to spend up to 118,000 of the
Correct.
MERF money or the money.
Well, it's all of the money is money that's
Right.
we're paying up front.
We haven't selected a contractor yet.
No.
Because they're
Correct.
with our final goal. We'll do that at a later date, but right
Yes.
now. I'll make a motion, then we approve to hire VIA for the architectural and engineering service proposal for Holly Hall and Lord's Green Library.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Have we had enough discussion? All right, hearing no more. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Nay? I didn't hear anything out of you, that's why.
Oh, sorry. No, I was an aye, sorry.
Okay.
You were like,
I was just waiting.
I only
like
heard two.
I heard Jessica very lightly.
Yes, no, I think, yeah, it's. I don't want to say we're shoehorned into this, but it's just.
Well, it's the route we chose to go.
Yes, I mean, we felt that the energy committee and the other people that are part of this sort of internal committee looking at this felt that this was the best way to go. It's one of those things too, where the MERF project went to lots of different towns, so we also have all that competition as well. And so to be able to lock down a local architecture firm that can handle a huge portion of this, I think is very beneficial. You know, I'm sure we're still gonna be fighting over contractors when it comes to that point, but I'm hoping that we'll be successful with this.
All right, we're moving on.
Okay, thank you.
Review and selection of an engineering firm for.
Thanks, Mike.
See you next.
Mountain Street Stormwater Improvement Scope and Study.
Okay. So this has been on the docket for quite a while. We got the grant in okay, there's that. We got the grant in November of 2023. We need to use it by the end of this year. So, and it just, for whatever reason, never rose to the top. So I talked to Frida about it and we got it together to send an RFP out. So essentially, it's stormwater improvements for Mountain Street in various ways. We've had multiple instances of flooding at the school location, and we're just trying to get an idea of what to do and what we need to have done there. So we created an RFP. We have project completion is November 2025. We had 5 submissions, which was nice. So that whoever we pick tonight and we have a recommendation, they'd work with the town, public works foreman throughout the study, and we'd be looking at enlarging the intake opening, improving hillside ditching, installing additional foot catch basins to manage overflow, and then enlarging the culvert. So it's a fairly simple study.
Am I under the impression, was it 2008, Pico, we did the big dig from Mount Street all the way down to the South Street, right, with the 4-foot culvert? So that is not going to be replaced, right? It's just the, up there at the intake, so to speak, the mechanism is just working when all that stuff comes off the mountain with debris, it gets caught in there.
Yeah.
But is that what we're?
Yeah,
am
I
drawing
mean,
the whole-
you want to add a little bit to.
And then is there gonna be a clean out down the street a little further? Is that for the logs or the crap that gets in?
Well,
that
that's
gate?
what the catch basins are for.
Okay,
And as I had side, suck them out last year. There's 2. There's 3 catch basins up there. big
that
ones.
one by Spring Street I see,
Yep.
top of, or bottom of Spring Street, I see one in the road.
Well, there's one there, but we do the ones up by Mountain Street, by East Dragway.
Yep,
And then there's another one just down the road from it.
by Very Norris's old.
Yep, and then the one across the road
Alright,
on that one there. So them 3 there, we cleaned them out last year. And they had probably 3 feet of stuff in them that we cleaned out. And there were some, on the first one, of course, where it catches most of your big rocks. I mean, there were some rocks in there like that.
yeah,
That-
so this is what we're gonna redo by winter time of 25.
Well, this is what the
We want-
study is gonna show us is what to do, so I don't have to leave that grate. Cause the only reason that thing hasn't plugged up lately is cause I leave that grate up. I don't put it down anymore to block the entrance.
But all
I
that
do if
stuff
there's-
that flows through.
Right, it flows through and catches into that catch basin.
Hence the name, catch bases.
So then I have side or V-comes go up and clean it out.
So this design is just to design something new to replace this, I won't
Correct.
call it antiquated.
Again, it's a feasibility study to see what is
What we can
possible
do.
there.
And then we'd have to go for money to, when they come up with a price, would they come up with a?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, what they would deliver would have all.
So who are they?
So we have included in your packet, we received 5. We had Du Bois and King. And we had MSK Engineers, Sanborn Head, SLR Engineering, and then VHB.
And what's the recommendation?
The recommendation would be SLR. So Frida and AZ and myself, we met last Friday and we looked through each of the proposals and we scored them. And our top one for all of us was the SLR.
Where are they from?
They're out of Waterbury. And both AZ and Frida were very familiar with them and said they did very good work.
What's their track record?
Were
Yeah.
they the cheapest one, Ian? I mean,
They
because there
were
was a
not.
big difference between one of them and all the rest of them.
Correct. They were not the cheapest one. They
Okay.
were the third cheapest.
Okay,
The first or the cheapest was MSK. So
Okay.
we had a budget. Well, we have a budget of 50,000. There's a certain percentage, which is the town contribution. Most went up to that 50,000. Some were 49.5, some were 46. MSK, for some reason, was 20.
yeah, that kind of
So
threw me off.
it was, and it threw us off too. We looked through it. It was a fairly decent report. It didn't score the lowest, but didn't score the highest. We did have concerns that given the amount that perhaps they didn't have a full understanding of the project. And we were concerned, even though they were the lowest, that we wouldn't get a full report from them. You know, I spoke to Eric about it, just sort of asking like, are we okay with just sort of a less detailed report, or do we need something that's more detailed? And it seemed like we want something.
I would think so, man. As much as detail as possible.
Yes, and we felt because of their pricing, it just didn't seem like, unless they had some misunderstanding of it, and
Yeah.
it's hard to then go back and talk to them, you know, about this. I think it's such a different amount. I'd be concerned with going with them and not getting what we want out of them. So SLR was our top in terms of just their understanding of the proposal, the qualifications, the work they'd done previously, their reputation, things like that.
And they can, everybody knew deadline, we gotta have this by.
Yes, everyone received the same request for proposals with the same information. Questions were asked that we sent on if people requested them, so everyone had the same information.
Good.
So I can share what we felt was the best one out of the lot. I mean, they were all very good, but just, you know, one needs to rise to the top.
Well, have you guys done your due diligence, you and Frida?
Yeah, you know, it's a
AZ.
score out of 100, and the point
Eric, you're
system
fine
is.
with that too? I mean, you looked.
Yeah, I looked through them today.
Yeah, the point system's there out of the 100, so for myself, it was 95 for SLR, 86 from AZ, and 97 from Frida. And that was the sort of the top, the weighted of all of them.
And Eric told you to.
So, you know, these folks it was a very good proposal, lots of detail. You could tell that they visited the site, and took the time to really have sort of a very good understanding of what was needed.
Yeah, I like actually, when I read through it, I liked the proposal. They had pictures of the actual
Yes,
site, they had detailed information,
Yeah.
like Ian said, and it was good.
I
yeah,
mean, that has always been a problem.
Yeah.
yeah.
A
Yeah,
lot of water comes off
they
that.
just had a tremendous amount of detail. And so we felt like their understanding of the project was higher than anybody's. So their total sum is the 46,900 out of the 50,000 budget. And our it's a 20% match, so it'll be 20% of that.
Our match will be 20% of that.
Correct. That's what the grant match is, yes.
I made a motion that we go with the firm SLR recommended by the committee.
I'll second.
So motion and a second for SLR to do the scoping study for Mountain Street. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Terrific, thank you. And we'll have, for next meeting, we'll have another scoping study for the board to look at, which will be for the West Street sidewalk.
We're gonna have the town all scoped out. We don't have no money to spend, but we're gonna have it all.
We're making
All right.
plans.
Yes.
Well, you have to have a plan to move ahead, so. Discussion on townwide police expansion.
So we have made a decision, you know, it's been discussed at many a town meeting and internally here, and as well as at select board meetings, in terms of how do we create a narrative to ask the question, should the town be go townwide in terms of the police department? We've had committees sort of raise the questions, and answers came from that. There's still a lot of people, both residents of the town are sort of that are asking the question of us, so we decided that we would just put the question on the agenda for next year for a town meeting.
We didn't decide.
Well,
The public decided for us.
right, right.
We had intended to be there, but they said
Yeah.
we will be there.
Yes, it's true. So we need to give guidance. We have an intern that'll be working with us over a number of months that will be working on this project, or at least we've put them on the project to be able to get as much data as possible to be able to help us create the narrative. And the narrative is just sort of an explanation of why we're doing this and why we think it's a positive thing for the town. Obviously, it has implications for both residents that are in the district and outside the district. But we want to sort of present as much information as possible. So this discussion tonight is sort of to just ask us and ask people who are attending this meeting, sort of what's needed in terms of the data. So Bruce can go forward. You know, it's not coming from the police department, it's coming from the
It's
town.
gonna come from us.
Correct.
The data needs to come from the police department.
Yes. And some data won't, and some data will. It's what we want, but we need some sort of direction for them.
So as far as the study, I think we need to know call volume.
Yeah,
Call volume and probably nature of call would be.
Severity of the call, yes.
Well, just the nature of the call, because we're gonna wanna show what by nature of the call dictates whether VSP is gonna respond. And
Yeah. So the nature of the call, if Bruce goes to them, would show that the residents are getting better service than from VSP. Because of, like Peter said, the nature of the call.
And they should be able to provide us with that, because we pay for those out of district calls, we get billed.
Right,
So we have that information, he says, you know, requested by VSP or whatever it was.
so should we ask the police department to give us the information, how many times did you respond to the?
I know,
Well,
I think we want both. I think we want the.
and how many will the VSP respond?
How many calls the VSP got, and I don't know if that information is all in Spillman, whether he or whomever, whether Bruce can get in there and pull it out, I don't know
When I
anything.
talked to him about the data, he felt that any data the VSP could provide us would be the exact same data that he could provide us. They're really.
Well, that's what I mean, he should be able to get into the system and tell how many calls were to the town of Bristol that went to VSP that didn't go to Bristol PD.
Right.
I think that we need that number, we need the number that they're already responding to.
yeah.
Would there be any sheriffs that would be providing service out front?
The only thing that I believe the sheriffs do in Bristol would be burn.
They do,
Burn
on solid waste,
And solid
District.
waste, yeah,
burning.
like trash dumping.
Illegal burns.
And they've been very, very responsive at that, working with conservation.
So they will continue to do that, whether we're.
District has contracted.
Townwide or not.
Do we have do we know how many times the police department, the state police, let's say somebody in the Natro, Mr. Q over here calls and said, we came home tonight and our windows broke, the front door was kicked in. Okay, send us a report of what, if anything was missing. Is that a call for service or was that a dispatch call? Or just, because we're not sending a trooper, just send it in for your insurance company. Do we need to know that? So we can say,
Well, it's a call.
It's still a call.
It's a-
They would have to tell you when it was their call or not, because the victim wants a call.
Right, say no one showed up. I think that, I would like to know that number, say they had
Well,
five
that's why
hundred
the
calls,
nature of the call and
whether.
whether or not
Physical.
they responded.
Responded, yes.
I think that, and I think that information is out there. The last thing we wanna do is make VSP look bad because.
No, I absolutely.
Because we are still gonna want their assistance.
Absolutely.
And I know that Bruce is dead set against.
Making them look bad.
Anything that is gonna slam another agency,
Right,
because they all work together.
right. You know, he wants
So
to be
you're
able to,
saying-
go on, Michelle.
No, so you're saying what we want is the total number of calls that VSP actually gets from the Bristol residents. The number of calls that Bruce gets for like his area, and then the number that he responds to that VSP either asks him to or he goes to anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Those are the three
So it'd be
numbers.
the total calls for Bristol, whether it be to Bruce or to VSP.
Well, he should have two different numbers. One for in his district, and then the total number of calls for out of the district. He can combine them, but you're gonna want them separated, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's just that, yeah, we need to know both,
Right.
but we need to know out of the district, we need to know what he responds to and what
What VSP actually gets called for and actually shows up for.
right.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, what they actually show up to, get
Right.
called and show up, and how many times they turned it over to him. Can you check that out, because we're busy.
So did we have similar response last time we did this? Didn't they give it to a good breakdown that way? Pretty sure they did.
I don't remember.
I don't know. I've heard that it's
That's right, I'll have to look back. Yeah, there was a lot of detail from the previous committees. So we want, call volume type of calls. I think it's also important to sort of. I guess, I don't know if they keep track of this, but the time spent in terms of calls, both follow-up with calls that are currently in the district versus outside the district. I mean, you're trying to build a picture of what the
Yeah.
police are doing, you know, knowing that the majority of their services are focused already in their district as they should be. You know, Bruce just wants to be able to have, whether it's a single district or whether it's townwide, he needs a clear idea of just what the people want, so he can adjust accordingly the services that they want to get. You know,
Well, I'm
he
sure
wants-
people are gonna
Well-
want the numbers too, you know.
Yes.
You need
Oh, yeah,
more
absolutely.
officers, more equipment, the budget.
Yeah, well, we need a budget too.
Yeah, so we want him to budget, and we want him to craft it with the idea that if it does go townwide, this is what they would like to see, or this is what is manageable for the amount of people that they would serve and the area in which they would serve it.
And then they would, okay, yeah, if this budget is so much, the current tax rate would be based on the current grand list
Right,
is this amount.
This is what it would cost you per 100,000.
yeah, how we've normally, done our calculations before. But so I think, a very clear picture of that, to see what you'd like to see, and we've had, previous chiefs that have come up with plans that maybe haven't been.
Well, when you say
detailed.
just double the budget,
Right.
that's not helping us at all, because it doesn't.
It's not realistic.
It doesn't say the district money, residents any money, and it costs the
Yeah,
outlying people more.
yeah, so budget, I think, Chris.
Would it also help geographic location? The reason why I ask it is, if you want to look at, let's say, a tiered approach. Where you're starting the core, you move out, then you move out, those calls relegated that. The current police district pays one rate, District 2 pays another, and District 3, it's based on call, and also what the expectation of service in those areas would be. So,
Right.
with that data, I'm trying to think of what data, I mean.
I talked to Bruce about that, because you had brought it up as well, Peter. he said that he doesn't wanna. He would look to use the same services in the entire area, and obviously, there's always gonna be some differences. His worry with offering a tiered approach was just the admin side, adding on a lot of time to be able to just sort of figure out the nature of doing a tiered approach in different areas. But that's not to say that that shouldn't be explored, just to see if that was a way to be able to do it, and if it was like an officer spending, X number of hours just sort of figuring out how to manage a tiered system versus a one overall.
Yeah.
And you have to see what the cost effectiveness of that is. But I think it's one thing we should look at is sort of, because there's always gonna be different levels of service. But we also don't wanna, Bruce said he doesn't wanna feel that people who live further out than the downtown area aren't then getting that service, which maybe they really want, and they don't have the option to get that because we've created this tiered approach. So we have to be careful, both ways. But yeah, I think a very clear budget of what that might look like, and what services the police department would offer.
What they provide versus what you're receiving now.
Yeah, and what they can provide, by going townwide.
It's ironically that I was looking through some of my old data that I still got from. I picked 13 towns in the state of Vermont. One of them being Richmond and Randolph, the highest two. Per population wise. And Fairhaven being the lowest. We were somewhere in the middle with the city of Enchantment and them, and Richmond is now looking into combining with Heinsberg with one chief, and
Right.
Randolph went and disbanded their police department, went Orange County Sheriff's Department, and then they elected a new sheriff, and he said, we can't handle it, so they had to go back to our police department. So it was ironic.
There's a lot of change.
I do feel that it's probably headed somewhere near the same way that fire and EMS is headed, where regionalization is gonna be the only way that the population can afford these services.
Yeah.
And, maybe we're not quite there yet, but we certainly wanna bear in mind that's probably the direction that we're gonna end up going, whether we see it in our tenure or not.
Right.
I don't know, but I know, on the fire side with volunteerism down and the responses you get, sure, Brett can attest to it, that, you're calling people from outside. More often than we ever used to.
That was the result of the one survey we had taken back then, 2012. I think.
Did you bring that with you tonight?
No, no, no.
Oh, really?
And maybe other notes into it. Too old. Well, it was quite expensive, we did that time.
It might be good to sort of have the intern look at like the perception of the police department, both in the district and outside. I think that would be good, and I think Bruce will have, obviously, he can speak to that.
Yeah. I know Bruce is just looking for direction on where we want him to head.
Yeah,
So-
and there's a lot of different things we could ask him to look at. So I think narrowing this down and being able to have a few key points that he can start putting data together, and then we can start sort of crafting that. And we could do surveys out there. We just sort of have to figure out the questions that we want to ask. I mean, the idea is to make it as simple as possible, that you have, the question is, should the town go, should Bristol go townwide for the police department? Very simple question with only one answer, either it's yes or no.
Yeah,
and that
that's
makes
two
the
answers,
decision,
but-
right?
Yeah.
But also we have the complexity of the disbanding of the district, and we'd have to figure out, because of that agreement, if we're asking that question that has a definitive answer, if the answer is yes, and enough residents support expanding, do we have to also then disband at the same time at that meeting, or can that be done afterwards? We'll have to look at that, because there's.
I think they said-
That was a big question we had back then.
Yeah.
And it had, I think it was, felt that it had to be, as you said, everybody says yes, okay?
Yeah,
Now the district people have to vote to disband it.
right.
Before everyone.
Yes, so it's district only for certain things, and then townwide for then others.
And it would have to be, I believe, on the ballot.
Okay,
So just like we do the police budget, there would be a question for that piece.
yeah.
I guess
Well, I
the
mean, I
question,
think this next thing is just the question of whether we want to, so you don't have to worry about it then until we actually make that move.
I don't know, I thought Valerie told us before it had to happen at the same time.
She did, but
No, what I'm
Right.
saying is what we're putting on the ballot is just a question of whether the town wants to go that way. I mean,
Well,
if they want to go that way, we're not going to say right then and there, okay, we're townwide. I'm sure
No,
there's
but
a
I know
process
that
we'll
is
have
the
to go
question.
through.
No, I think that's what we are saying. That's the question. It's not the question. It's the question about the question. No, the question is, do residents support a townwide police department? And if enough residents say yes, then that means we need to disband the
But
current
that means that's the start of the process, Ian. I don't think that, to me, that doesn't mean
yeah.
you're townwide right then and there. That
It
means
won't be- it
the
won't
town
be
is
in-
instructing us to go that route.
it won't be until, I would say it wouldn't happen until July 1, the budget cycle.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
right,
Yeah,
I think,
All right.
if we voted on it, let's say this coming March, and I guess we're going to. Way we're discussing this,
Yes.
and I think we'd say. Are you voters want to start townwide police department as of July 1, 2027? Because the budget we vote on, that town meeting the next day is the budget we're gonna start with July 1. And we
Well,
couldn't even wrap,
we'd
we'd have to give 18 months or
we
15
would
months.
have that budget.
Yeah, I think we would have a budget. If the idea is to next, as you said, maybe next July 1, have a townwide police department, if it was approved, we would need to prepare, but have that ready for that possibility.
Yeah.
I mean,
but
Bruce
then
could
you would have to
prepare.
get it. Then you have the question of, okay, if you're doing that, who approves that budget? Are you gonna have to have a special meeting? Because then it's townwide and everybody approves that budget, not just the district.
I think it's cleaner if
So there's a lot of complexities.
No, there
Yeah,
is.
no, I think,
Yeah.
I think you vote whether to go townwide or not, and the budget would be included in that vote. And then,
Oh,
effective
Okay.
July 1 of 2027.
right.
Hmm.
And then if it didn't pass, we would still have to have a budget for,
Yes.
And that's what we're voting on the next, or the same day. You're going into the
Right.
curtain, so to speak.
But then you're
Your
voting
budget
on-
question
Hmm,
and your
that's
townwide
interesting.
police department.
I
I
guess
mean, we're
because
gonna have to figure out the
yeah.
logistics, but I think,
Yes,
I don't,
it'd be nice not to wait another year.
I don't think.
Yeah, I
we
don't
kick
think
the
you
can
have
down
to.
the road.
Okay,
I think
mean-
Peaker's right. If you have the vote to go townwide, are we gonna go townwide and the budget right in there? We have to plan that budget and our budget meetings for a
Yes.
townwide plus also just district-wide. We're gonna have two budgets.
Yeah,
okay, all right.
so if it fails, we
Yeah.
have, and
We have
then,
a fallback.
and then I believe. Because we're not asking to start until July 1, we have until July 1 to disband, and I'm not.
Right.
Yeah, but that is good. That's right.
I think my belief is March of 26, Tuesday, I walk in the ballot, you hand me a thing, do I want a townwide police department? Question, and do you want to disband your current police district?
That would be that would just. I guess
I
you
don't
could,
think-
you could have that question on for district
Residents.
residents. And it would have to say, if the. Vote to go townwide passes,
Yeah.
do you,
we're getting into the.
I mean,
weeds here.
we're getting into
It's-
the weeds,
it's- Yeah, we need to figure out, that is, yeah.
So
But I
we
think
have
if
to
that's-
figure out those
Because we really
steps.
want we want one ballot for the questions, yes or no. If we have that, when you're disbanding, that should be a separate one, just.
well, that is just for the
Yeah.
district
Okay.
residents.
We had it figured last time. Question, do you want it? And then the district question, do you want to expand the police department in favor of a town?
Yeah,
That's
And
it.
I think it's probably gonna be similar to when we went from elected to appointed treasurer and clerk. The elected had to run. And we also had the question of whether we were going to appoint it. And if we went to
Oh, yeah.
appoint it, you have 45 days for the elected person to resign. And then
Right.
appoint whoever the new one is, so
Yeah.
there's probably some kind of
yeah, There has to be some time in between.
There's gotta be some sort of loophole there.
Right,
I just think, well,
guess
we
it
don't
is-
need to,
Yeah.
just so long as we know what we have to do.
Okay.
Right.
We've got time to figure
Yeah.
that out.
So do we want, let's see if there's a consensus amongst the board here to, with the goal, if, let's say it's successful, that we would institute it at July 1st, is that what, like, you made that suggestion, and I hadn't thought about that, I was sort of caught in like, oh, it's at town meeting day, we're doing these things, but it wouldn't start.
Right,
That does give
because
us
we
a-
don't have any money until July 1st,
Right,
but we'd have to budget for
right.
it.
Are you supportive of that, Joel, or would you like to see it
I think
another
it's dead in
year?
the water if you. Cause I'm going into the ballot and you're handing me, cause I live on Pine Street, handing me my budget
Yeah,
for police department, cause if it gets failed, I gotta pass the budget.
yeah,
And then I see one that says townwide for almost, I won't say the word double, but a barely increase from what I see it. I think it's just a yes or no, you wanna go within 15 months, by July 1 of 2027, a townwide police department.
I don't wanna kick it down the road that far. We
Because
just keep,
What if the voters, what
we
if,
just keep kicking. If they say no, they say no and it's over and done with.
what if
And
the
Bruce-
voters say
and
yes?
Bruce says he can live with that.
What if the voters say yes? Townwide. And then we have a district vote, and they say, no, we don't wanna disband our police department,
Well, then they can pay the tax on top of it.
and we have two police departments.
No,
No.
we still have the same.
Village setup?
Yeah, I don't wanna see that.
That's what you would create.
And we have a question, I think, none of us, let's put our hats on and play a lawyer here, we aren't. So I think a lawyer has to say, can we have the question say, if we go townwide, July 1, and we can debate over 27, 26, July 1, townwide police department, this will disband the police district of the town of Bristol, village of Bristol, the town of Bristol's police district will be disbanded as July 1, 2020,
And
whatever.
you still have to vote twice, no matter how you do it.
Yeah, we would figure all that. Brett, you have a question?
Yeah, if it's appropriate to ask a question.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not gonna pretend for a second I understand how law enforcement works, but I do know at one time, the Bristol Fire Department was a village fire department. And then when our forefathers made the decision to go townwide with other, entities in the town, but for whatever reason, we didn't do the police department at that time. It's not like we went out and bought 3 more fire trucks and got 30 more volunteers. This ongoing conversation of the potential of doubling the police budget. I mean, how about just a vote of going townwide and providing the service with what you have today and see how it goes? I mean, to go into it with saying to yourself, well, we're going to need 2 additional officers, we're going to need 2 additional vehicles. I don't think that's a very good or responsible approach. It should just be about providing a service townwide. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Brett.
To give you a little history, Brett, the 92 merger document says, and I served on the committee, and they were never gonna merge the town and the village if we didn't say, they always knew the fire department would be just one, the town of Bristol, but it passed because it was in the document, it would be a police district and not townwide. And so that's where that ended. And the merger document says the police district has the right to vote on whether to disband their district or continue it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that'll be very clear. That's part of that discussion.
And like you said, Brett, we don't need to double resources, and Bruce is very aware of that, and he has an idea of what he can do it with. And it's, I don't believe it's anywhere near double, so.
Yeah.
Just to be able to continue, the fear is, to be able to continue to provide the service within the district that he's been providing, along with covering the rest of the town.
Understood. Thank you.
Any other
I think
discussion on this in terms of? Go on, Jessica.
Jessica,
I said, I think that that's also why we're going to collect the nature of the calls, is that if the purpose of this is to try to make the police budget more sustainable, we need to expand out the number of people who are paying for it, but we also might want to see what sort of calls we're getting and say, you know, what sort of service can we really offer? If you have the capacity to unlock people's car doors for them or whatever, that's great, but you know, that's going to be a question, I think, of what people are expecting. What sort of services are they expecting from the police department, and what are they willing to pay for? So I think that's where the data that we collect will build that case. So what will the cost be, and what will the services be that you get for that cost? So I think collecting the data will probably help us make that case.
The other thing that we might want to make clear is it doesn't matter where you're from. If something happens in the district, they take care of it.
Right.
So the idea that a district resident pays the tax and they're the only one that gets the service is wrong. You know, it's no different than the sidewalks. If you come in from out of town and you walk on the sidewalks, or the street lights, or any of that stuff. So I think we need to make it clear that even though you're a district resident and you're paying this tax, there are a ton of other people getting a benefit that aren't paying anything for that service.
Right.
And this would be a way to even that out.
Right.
I mean, cause if you come in from Moncton and somebody breaks into your car while you're in the district,
Yep.
the district police are gonna come, they're gonna take your statement, and then they're gonna follow up with you. Even though you're not a district resident.
Right.
Or maybe not even a town resident.
Right. Yeah,
I
exactly.
think that's why having those numbers will be so important. I mean, right now, I just don't think people they know what they pay, right? Because they see their tax bill, but you don't necessarily know what the whole service is. You only know what you use. And so I think having that sort of information and sharing it really clearly will make it pretty clear to people, you know, what is the benefit, what are the costs, and then if we want to keep these services and make them sustainable, we need to broaden out the tax base. Hopefully that will be compelling.
Any other suggestions?
Nope.
Okay. All right.
Ready?
Excellent.
Move onward. The 2023 audit review, and I didn't even stutter.
I'm impressed.
You audit.
All right.
Well, as we said before, we got a management.
Here, come on up here. Yeah, because this will be more detailed and.
Oh, here's a summary I wrote up today.
So,
Some free time at home.
midday off. You're right.
So.
You just love to write up summaries about the audience.
Starting Friday. We chatted about this. Sorry, I had an email about this, I wasn't in today. But we can talk, I mean, it's really. 4 big piece highlights to look at. And a reminder, again, this is your 23 fiscal year 23 audit, so it's 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The first section, first one is your balance sheet on page 17, PDF page 21. It shows that your unassigned balance was almost $300,000, but you also had $215,000 of overspent funds. Those are the funds that, the other small funds out there, whatever, there's a whole list of them. The list can actually be found on page 46. So at the end of the day, you ended up with about an $85 fund surplus. That's your unassigned fund availability.
85,000, not 85.
85,000.
85,000, sorry.
And we believe it's gonna go down for 24.
So we do not have our 5% rainy day fund, is what you're saying.
Not even
No,
now.
and they spell that out, that we are in very good stead with our reserve funds for all of our capital funds. But our rainy day are our 5%. We are not. We have a few months.
The next piece would be your enterprise fund, which are your water and your sewer. Both of them, their operating budgets were way over. But their reserve funds, and Darlene was gonna look into this with me more on next week when I'm in. They shake out that they're still negative, but not, I mean, they were overspent by this, but so the other side was on a positive, and we can't, and there's no rationale of what the numbers not right off, but the details are there. Page 41 through 43, that is, it's the town's long-term debt as of the time of that audit. It shows us all of the loans we have out there, what they're when they were acquired, what their terms are, and when they will end.
And they also listed the leases that we have.
Yeah. So like the station, the antenna, I can't remember the lease off the top of my head. Then the last piece, yeah, and then the last piece would be is your budget comparison. The big one on that is in 23, we overspent the budget by $90,000. So those are the 4 big takeaways that.
Where are we overspending the budget, or is it a lot of little?
A lot of littles, if I remember right, it's like, I didn't have time to go through, I had a discussion 3 o'clock on Friday. Pages 65 through 72 break out your budget. Give you your actual, your budgeted, and then your actuals, your budgeted in your first column, your actuals in the third. And I think the deviations in the fourth column.
How did we not know that?
Are these overspent or are these overspent?
You should, marginal oversight, Joe, my honest opinion.
Negative is.
Parentheses,
I mean-
parentheses, negative.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at the budget reports and it's like still not at 100%, I don't assume we're overspending the budget.
No, because the budget reports is the budget that we put together, but it doesn't include a lot of the projects that we do. A lot of the projects are grant funded, and we've had over the last few years, we had a huge number of those projects, and I think the oversight for where the money is coming from for those projects hasn't been as good as it should have been.
And they also had them as separate funds out here that you weren't even seeing.
Right.
So we're pulling, by consolidating all these funds, we're pulling those, there's over 200,000 of funds that we need to make go away.
Yes.
They're overspent. There's no more money coming for them. They're old. So we need to clean those up.
Yeah.
So that what you see in here is everything.
Yeah.
Instead of just seeing the base general
So-
fund, and you're not seeing all the other projects that we
Right.
do.
So are
So
we truly
we-
overspent, or is there money coming back in that's gonna like,
No, they were truly overspent. We have about just over, around 214,000 that's overspent. In projects that are been done, and the money has just not been cleared out.
But
and we're
these
not getting
numbers
it? So
are,
those, sorry, Pico, those grant funds have already come in, reimbursed us for
Yeah,
whatever.
and
they gotta
they were
reimburse us.
over. Yeah, and we
Yeah.
have to clear those out.
There are a few that actually have a positive, but not many.
Not many.
So, and again, these are the 23 numbers. The 24, I don't know what they're, I haven't heard of tentative deadline,
He said a couple weeks,
Draft.
right?
We keep hearing a couple
Couple
weeks.
weeks.
So.
Yeah,
so if I'm reading this right, there's 132,000 in unpaid taxes. Is
well,
that what that 132,000 is?
What page are you on, Peter?
in 59. Sounds about right for FY 23.
So if you take that and
so,
take that 90,000 out of it, there's about $40,000 worth of, yeah.
yeah, so at the end of the day, your revenues were short $63,000. You add that to, I take that back, your budget was overspent by $27,000 for a total cash deficit on the year of $90,000. That's the 90.
Yeah,
Sorry, I jumped ahead on this.
because so that 132, if we got all our money, we had enough money.
Mhm.
But we base our budget on a grand list that says, oh, everybody's gonna pay up.
Mhm.
Right, and our
That's
budget-
not to say we didn't overspend.
oh, yeah.
Which
And that's,
doesn't-
and
we
our
should-
budget doesn't include our capital projects. We don't budget for that. We budget for that kind of in our reserve funds, because we're gonna use those as we go down each year. And we identify projects. Most of those are grant driven, but when you have a project like Briggs Hill, for example, where you engage in the process with a funding source, and then it gets to a point where it no longer becomes manageable to be able to keep that engagement. And you've already paid $150,000, $160,000.
Divorce is expensive.
Exactly. So that's, and so what happens is our rainy day that has slowly built up over time, and there's no official fund that money gets put into, a percentage each year. We do it and we talk about it in meetings, but there's never been an official way of putting that aside. That's just sitting in a pool of unassigned funds.
It's just sitting in the general fund.
That's
Yeah.
correct. Just being captured over time with, salaries that weren't fulfilled for the whole year because of changeover and turnover, other things that weren't spent. And then you have projects like 156,000 gets paid out, but there was never any budget for this. So it's a combination of sort of recognizing those, and we have all the ledgers for that. We have all those numbers. It's just figuring out how we want to balance that out. And I think we were at a point where we had so many projects that were happening at the same time, and there wasn't management over like, here's exactly where we're taking this money from if we don't use this, and so.
And a lot of speculation on, honestly, that you were gonna get more grant money than you did.
Yes,
That hit
You said what
you
that?
repeatedly over the last few years.
yeah.
We've done what? Chris, I didn't hear you.
That you assumed you were getting more grant money than you actually ended up getting.
I think for some of the projects, they were longer term, and so we knew that we had to have multiple sources.
And some of them did go over.
And some of them were just, they ballooned to an amount that, as we learned with Briggs Hill, it just wasn't acceptable. Like we were doing projects that were almost
Well,
identical
Lincoln
to
Road
that.
cost us half again as much as. we
Yes, and that was another one where there were funds for that, but it was nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the oversight wasn't there to look at that and say, it's gonna cost 500,000, we have a grant for 175, we need to continue to get grant money for it.
And I think some of the leftover that's in there is what our portion would have been
Yeah,
for whatever grant we were getting. If it was
Yeah.
20% or whatever, and it just never got cleaned out.
right. So part of that is sort of, since it was money taken from the general fund, this pool of money that's collected over the last decade or so, is we want to replenish that in ways that make sense. And part of it will be looking at some of these projects where we overspent or we didn't have enough funding for, and more than likely taking it out of reserve funds and saying that this was an unknown cost for this particular thing, for this road project. And so we essentially move it, because the reserve funds are separate. They're completely separate from our general fund money, like literally in different accounts. So we would move them back to top up the fund that we used. So we're balancing out that, but knowing that we've dropped down on our reserve, we didn't have enough. So maybe that pushes projects out.
Said a number of times during budgeting that if we keep cutting and trimming and aren't careful, that it's gonna turn around and bite us and.
Yeah.
Turn around, because it's about ready to bite us.
Huh?
Turn around, because it's about ready to
Yeah.
bite us.
Yeah.
Well,
So-
I mean, we'll have a better picture hopefully in a few weeks when, or within a month, and we get to 24.
Yeah.
I don't wanna speculate, it's just not, at this point, it's not good, this is just, I wanted to give you the highlight, or whatever you wanna call it, of the.
The low.
So,
Yeah, it's one of the highlighted spots that we should look at.
so
For the-
page 59, you said in your brief here that sewer and water were over by almost $166,000.
22 for sewer. and
Wait a minute,
water.
so under page 59, it said general government was over by almost 40,000. Public safety to the good of 23,000, launch on mile, library at 31.
Yeah, if you subtract,
Public works there,
If you
were
take
over
this
by almost
number-
40.
you take this number out of that number, that's basically.
Yep, this is what your revenue was short, this is what you overspent, you add those together and you get $90,000.
So this is what we were short.
We're only,
No,
You overspent.
We overspent.
$27,000 more cash than you had in 2023.
Yeah, if we had
$27,000.
gotten all the taxes.
Right.
that would have been a positive number.
But we got almost, I'm looking at two, just the general government, which is general office.
That
listed,
everything comes out of the general fund.
Yeah.
with the exception of public works and library and public safety. Those two right there were $80,000 between public works and general
I
government.
would have to.
It says 39.3 and 39.8. Eric is division limit. So I don't understand why. I guess I don't understand.
But this could have
If
been,
you budget $776,000, you
You
spent
spent-
116.
Oh, yeah, 40,000 just about.
and that could have been grant money that we anticipated getting, that we didn't get. It
Could be the
have been
Lincoln Road in
emergency.
there,
Could
could
have
be the
been,
Lincoln Road
yeah.
in there. Okay, and then you said the water was where?
Page
22.
22. So if you look at, and again, that one has to be more clarity on, I apologize, I didn't have great clarity, but if you look, the numbers are negatives, I got those copies when we were talking. Oh, it's PDF.
Road 22.
Yeah. But there was a little narrative that's,
Hey Sharon, did they send us hard copies of this or is it just the computerized copy?
no, we haven't got hard, we don't get hard copies until it's final.
Okay.
Yeah, so though,
It's in the,
yeah,
It's in
there's
the
a
base-
couple different
base
things,
cap
there's
if you want it.
highlights.
Yeah,
just
no, I
wanna-
looked at it. It was just like 108 pages and I'm like,
No, I
I
know.
just can't go through that on the computer right now.
Joe, that was sort of what I was trying to break that out for you, so
Yeah.
those are the, when I spoke with Darlene, those are the 4 spots that she really recommended that this board look at and look at the details of. So I'll email you, I'm in the office tomorrow morning for a little bit to do payroll, I'll send this out to everybody. So you have this electronic document as well that shows the pages that you're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah, I think both of the funds were overspent a little on water and sewer.
Well,
There's other notes, yeah.
that says 12,000 net position and this one shocks me or when I see overspent water by 135.6. That's not.
But it could be the reallocation of funds to your reserve fund too, that's what, again.
Well, and could that be some loan payments starting in with?
Very possibly could, I had this discussion Friday, I didn't work today,
We didn't,
I'm off, I'm on
we didn't
vacation
pay
this week.
Pine Street in 23.
No, we did,
Yeah.
because they did the work in September.
And again, it's a combination of things where it's the projects that we're doing. We had obviously the water line project and then had a lot of associated costs that were outlaying before we get any kind of
Yeah,
reimbursement.
135.
And so when you're looking at $300,000 of just engineering for phase 1, and we're paying for that immediately, that's what they're seeing in here.
Yeah, we haven't borrowed
Can I ask
that
you a
money
question?
Yeah,
Does that mean, I'm not making that clear on this. You talk about like a 90,000 difference. Are all the bills paid
Yes,
and that money is somewhere? We don't owe it to somebody. In other words, the bill collector is gonna come knock on our door.
No.
Default.
we were tapping into reserve or undesignated funds to pay our bills.
Unassigned funds.
Unassigned.
funds, I had to learn that, everybody's got.
So you're not in that kind of.
They're not
No,
gonna.
we are not. we're
No,
not in
no,
financial
it's coming.
parity.
Yeah, we're not in that position in 23, 24, or 25. Like we're in a stable position. It's just the management,
growing.
because there's just, right, it's growing. But it's also the management because we have just, there are a lot of things,
The cushion we had is gone.
right?
The unassigned funds that we took and put to bolster other funds.
Yeah,
Have used something else.
yeah.
It shouldn't have been put there because we didn't have it.
I mean, we generally have used the unassigned funds based on the audits, and
Yeah.
that's what we did last time. But when
We haven't had
when you have-
an audit on
right.
time.
So,
and-
we used the 22 one, but we were always very hesitant about that. But those don't get assigned, and only unless that money is available. And I think, again, with the projects that are outside of our budget that we put together, which I, we're slowly changing that. And so I think that's a big part of sort of looking at what our grant funds are and what our project status is. And that's what this shows. I mean, it shows obviously the complete picture.
So
And we also have not, as far as I can tell, any unassigned funds that were voted on at town meeting for different reserve funds have never been moved. Or at least I haven't found since I've been here. I looked back to see if I could find where we had done it.
Right.
And it was approved, but it was never moved, so I don't even know if anybody checked to see if we actually had the unassigned funds to do that.
So like in March of 24, you might have moved 20,000.
I think there was, in the last couple of
We had
years, I
moved-
think there was one unassigned one for like 10,000 or something, and we've
Right.
never done anything with that one, but I couldn't find where where others before that had been voted on and actually
Right.
moved over.
So that money wasn't moved, sat there, was used for projects that we had to spend. And so what we would have done would have expected those in the next year's reserve funds if we looked at the amounts. But again, it's sort of, when we're putting together our budget, we generally, it's harder, we never really dug back into a full year prior to that and where we're at with all our funds. I mean, it's part of the town report, but it's one of those things that it was never a select board item or an agenda item that was always on there, the first meeting or whatever, just discuss those things. And we had a very dense report that we would look at. It's much better now in terms of what the treasurer is producing. And so it's just being mindful of that. And also too, and I said this, like the board does a heck of a lot, but we really need to do this like all the time. But you can't. And so I think it's just a very difficult position. Like, it's just, the board is expected to know all this information and the administrator is expected to be able to explain this information, and it's very dense. And whereas once, it was like giving, $1 to set this thing up, 100 years ago, it's so complex now how to run a town, even one as small as ours. It's just incredibly complex, and it takes a lot of people thinking about it all the time to make sure it runs smoothly.
Now, as a taxpayer looking from the outside,
Yeah,
you guys do a great job. I mean, you haven't put the town in jeopardy.
no,
You work hard to try to keep it together. And, but I'm the only one here over them, right? People don't even realize what the hell's going on, the job that all you guys do.
Right.
And you're doing a great job keeping it together, but for what we have in this town, what we can afford,
yeah.
do a good job.
And we try to balance all of that out, but part of that is having, especially someone at the top who has a very good understanding of the financial picture. I mean, it's very good to be able to have the ability to get money and to get these projects, but if you don't have a complete picture, which is a number of things too. I'm not throwing shade on past employees, but it's like, we have had turnover in the treasurer position, and that's a vital position. And it's just one of those things that's happened over the last few years that we and also discovering things that maybe were not set up correctly to begin with, because of the understanding of how complex these systems are.
And I think getting squared away with Nemrick so that we understand it. I mean, obviously, you always used it, but you didn't understand it. And that's not your fault, that's our fault for.
Well, it's right,
Well, the
it's
other
more
thing, too,
nuanced
is
than
the
that.
training too, you get
Yeah.
more, oh, you can do this, or you can do that, or you can do
Yes.
that. Whereas before, nobody wanted to ask the question,
Yeah.
oh, this is how I'm doing it.
Right.
I mean, we
Works
told
for
one
me.
time.
Yeah, it works for me.
sometimes not,
And
that's how
nobody's
it
questioning
is.
me, so I'm
Right.
just gonna, yeah.
And it's fund accounting, and fund accounting is a very different animal than your normal home accounting or your business accounting. It's a totally different thing. And so just being aware of that. And so that's why, like, having as many people as possible sort of being interested in this, I mean, myself being one of them, and sort of having that understanding and be able to ask the questions, There's only so many questions we can ask in a meeting about the budget and about what's happening. And it takes time to then figure that out and to explain it. I mean, yeah, it just takes a lot of time. And so if you have 10 projects that you're working on versus one, like that time is then diluted between 10 major projects that you're doing where you could be focusing on this one,
So yeah, so going forward, the hopes are at the end of every month, you'll get a new balance sheet that will be understandable.
Yeah.
You also have your updated, we'll be providing you with the updated, your account balances as well, so
Yeah.
your budget update, so.
And we'll get rid of the ones that you need to tell us we
Yeah.
can go ahead and take this money, so those will go away, and you'll see everything instead of just a piece of it.
Yeah, so once we, so some of those have been moved to, like, when you look through the report on like all the miscellaneous funds that are out there in the 2023. When we consolidated a bunch of stuff last year, some of those have already gone away, so that's why we
Right.
don't wanna do anything till we get to 24. As far as paying off that, or moving those funds.
And the 24 that we hope to get by July 1 is what ended last July.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so that would,
Yeah, but you can't get an audit that ends.
no,
in 3
right,
weeks.
yeah, you can't get it, yeah.
Yeah,
Sharon,
it'll
you
actually
said-
add up is what'll happen.
Yeah, but to Michelle's question, though, hold on, but to Michelle's
Sharon,
question is,
Oh, go ahead, Joel.
is when she said, when we get a budget report and it says, okay, I'm not gonna pick on Public Works, but he's here, it says fuel. Salaries, overtime, you know, we get it in May. We'll say, oh, he's got a month left and he's within his budget. But he may not be because some other funds got designated to, I'm not saying Eric's signature or approval, because it could have been for a grant for some stuff. Is that why, when he says I say it here in 23, he said he's 40,000 over his budget? We could have paid for
Exactly.
Lincoln Road that.
That's what we're trying to.
There's a washout that happened a month ago on West Street.
Yeah.
That was unplanned.
Right.
So it's things like that. So.
They didn't set we didn't set something up different. It
Just came out of my budget.
Came out of
Right.
his budget.
That's why when, in my opinion, when we started doing the budgets this year. I know it's a hard thing to do, but you guys gotta not nickel and dime anymore. Because of all the rains that we've been getting, the washouts we've been getting. If you try to nickel and dime all our budgets, prices go up on everything, you know that as well as I do. So which means you're actually doing less work for the money because your prices have increased. And then if you get a washout or something on top of that. That you don't plan for because it's just happens. And then that comes out of your normal, that's. You know, it just.
Eric, I hear you, it's a balancing act, but.
Yeah.
You know,
We need an emergency fund for the emergency fund.
Well, and that's the other piece too, that was a discussion I wanted to have at another date is. We keep talking about having that 5% rainy day fund, it's maybe actually solidifying what that really means. And defining it and how we handle and how we track it.
Maybe we put it somewhere.
Yeah, that's where I'm going.
And
But
that was a rainy day fund.
We put it somewhere and then.
it's accountable, so we know where it is and we know what.
Yeah.
So.
We know when we dip into it.
Yeah, so my hopes are by budget season, when we get into that in October, November, I'll have a proposal for you and we can.
But
go
why,
that way.
I guess, why, my question is why don't we have in the budget an emergency fund line item? I mean, we do it, I do it for my own self, for my own home budget. Why wouldn't we do it for a municipal budget? I mean, because we always have emergencies.
We've always done it as the rainy day fund. It's just, there's been money there.
Well, I understand that, but I'm just saying, you
don't
can't always plan on that.
And I suggested that this year, as we talked about, we should have an emergency fund, and I think that's probably what.
Exactly what
this
I'm talking about,
becomes.
Michelle, is actually creating that so we track it correctly.
Yes.
Right,
Right, because they've never tracked it in a system, this 5%.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, we always just say it's there.
There, right.
Yeah.
Hey Sharon, I do have a question for you. You said something that you weren't able to track the money ever being transferred to the capital funds, I guess is what you said.
Unassigned ones that were voted on.
Okay, I
Not
understand
the
that. but
regular one, it's unassigned,
Assets.
yeah,
So do-
unassigned money that was, if we have unassigned funds of say 10,000, we're gonna put this extra 10,000 in.
Capital
the
building.
fund. Yeah, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I don't believe even though they voted on it, I think there's a disconnect because it's done in March. We don't do any of the transfer until after the tax rate or until we find out what our audit numbers are. And I don't think any of those unassigned funds were ever moved, even though they were voted on. Whether we have the funds or not, I don't know, but I don't really believe that anybody was looking at that.
Well, that's what I was wondering. So any of those unassigned funds we did vote to appropriate aren't there. So people
Never.
who think they had that extra $10,000 probably doesn't have that extra $10,000.
No, and I don't think any of the department heads really,
Planned
you know,
on.
there's a
It
disconnect
It
because.
probably didn't matter.
Yeah,
Because, you know, we've added 10,000 to the technology, but that was just sort of the bolster to be able to.
Did we
go to
really though?
projects. Well, no.
We didn't
no,
good
not
faith.
yet, because we don't know if we have it.
Right, we
Right,
did in
that's
good
true.
faith.
I mean, that's what we voted to do. It didn't get moved, but it didn't really matter.
If you
Because we
don't have
didn't,
the
we never
money.
dipped into those funds anyway,
Yeah.
and most of
Yeah.
the reserve funds, unlike the technology, which is maybe a little bit more active, are long-term planning.
Mhm.
And so in this report, and I'm sure in the next one too, it demonstrates that we have very good long-term planning. For a lot of our very expensive items, especially on the fire department side, you know, it's 5-year, 10-year, 15-year plans to be able to buy that equipment, and we've put that away, and we're in a very good position with our reserve fund.
We put it away, but if the money's never been moved,
No,
are those
only,
account balances accurate?
yes.
Yes, it's just unassigned ones
Yeah.
that were.
And
approved.
we've only
Not the
done,
actual reserve fund ones that were approved,
yeah,
just if we
Right,
have
but if
extra
we
mon-
bolstered the fund
Mhm.
and that money didn't get moved,
Because we didn't have it or it just didn't get moved.
yeah.
Cause we've been told if you don't, you can vote on it for unassigned funds, but if you don't have any unassigned funds. It doesn't
Yeah.
get moved.
So that's the other piece too, to be honest with people, nobody's been tracking those funds to get like hard.
nobody's
balances.
added that money into their.
No.
No, and also the money in and out of those funds, Peter used to track it, that's how long ago it was handled. When Peter left, that stopped. And it hadn't happened since. It's on that in your revolving loan fund are sitting on my desk to figure out how to get caught up. I don't know. There's money there, they balance out, the
Yeah.
capital dollars are sitting in the bank account, so I feel very comfortable on that side. Just where, he's also, as we've been spending those monies, they may not have been removed correctly either.
Yeah, that's the other piece. We've got a
So the
little
debits
more.
may not have been coming out, so
Yeah.
we may actually have more cash in that bank account than we actually need to meet all our obligations. So that's my goal. I got 2 years of chaos to unpack to try to figure out where that is.
And figure out a way to track it. It's
Yeah.
hard to track it in Nemrick, that kind of balance. The way they're adding to it and spending from it. You can track, obviously, in terms of when it's spent, but it's more difficult. So that's why sort of having our capital improvements plan, you sort of have it in there and you're updating it each year. And it's just, again, being vigilant in terms of setting aside time to be able to do that.
And our grant money is in the same
Yeah,
bank account as
the reserve.
the reserve funds.
So. I'm gonna pick on Brett for a minute. You met with Brett as far as what money was in his capital reserve
Yep.
fund.
Yes,
Brett, did you add the unassigned funds into your number when you met with Chris? And did those numbers jive?
no.
He went to sleep.
Maybe he left.
Yeah, so more than likely, no. It was hard to get it, and the reason that the capital improvement plans were not in this year's town report is because of that uncertainty. So essentially, we could look back and track from town report to town report what we put in using unassigned, and our current funds are probably minus those funds.
I also have a spreadsheet that shows what was voted on,
Yeah.
what was unassigned.
Yeah,
All the voted regular
Yeah,
reserve
right.
funds have been done, it's just
Yeah.
the unassigned,
Because
so I don't believe.
that's
it's ever
figured into
been-
the tax rate.
yeah, yeah, we can see those funds, and as I said, the funds.
Ian,
and
you
the-
have to allow Brett to
Oops.
talk.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brett. He must have been hopped off and came back on.
Yeah, he
Apologies,
did. He
Brett.
popped back in.
There you go, sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. Sorry about that. Yeah, in regarding those undesignated funds that you provided to the fire department,
Mhm.
all I know is you voted to it. Where that shows up in our capital plan, I don't know. I'm just making the assumption it is there.
And
So
it
the
probably
numbers
is or
you,
not.
the numbers you had in your mind match the numbers that Chris gave you? And
Yes.
I'm just curious as to when that money was voted in your mind, I would assume like if it were me, I would figure that money was in my budget and that's what I would base that number on.
And I did. I did do that. I'm sorry, I'm out walking my dog right now, so I'm not in front of my screen, but
Well, that's fine.
I'm very confident I incorporated that dollar amount. I don't even remember what it was, perhaps $20,000 around there. I did incorporate that into the fire department's capital. I think it was the vehicle fund.
Right, but the number you figured you had matches the number that Chris gave you,
Yes.
so that money is there. But how it got there, we
I
don't
think
know.
it got moved there.
So a few of the funds have been, I've seen movement in, and again, without taking each one of these funds, I don't have an answer for you. If
Okay.
you wanna know.
Yeah.
No,
I have a spreadsheet of the unassigned funds. I don't believe they were ever actually moved into the funds, but I can look.
well, I think the only saving grace is he's got the money he thinks he has, so,
Yeah,
that money we know is there.
Right. And it's not something where,
Do we?
It's not mischievous.
You actually do.
Okay, I just, I
That-
don't mean that.
That's your,
Yes.
that's your most flush bank account is that fund.
are the reserve funds, which the report attests to. It's just that again, it's complex in the method of tracking it. We all need a system that we all track it, and we know it's the same document, and we know that who can update it.
All right.
And so that's,
So we know we have work to do,
yes.
Mhm.
and we're not gonna figure it all
No,
out.
and so I would expect, as Chris said with 24, there's gonna be more unusual,
More
not
headache.
unusual, but larger spending. Because we had continue to have projects that need to outlay capital for them. Part of it is sort of we're getting reimbursement for them, part of it is that we weren't able to get reimbursement until a certain time, so as that comes back in, that zeroes it out. So that's what we can expect for the next one.
All right. Review and approval of past meeting minutes. There I go again.
There are none for this week, but I will get to them. Get to
Damn
both of them.
administrator, I tell you,
Well, the reason is, so
I don't need a reason.
No, but I wanna ask a question about this, and just to make sure it's okay to do. In executive session, we agreed to hire the new town administrator. And that needs to become public knowledge, but I just wanted to make sure. We've sometimes done it where it's because of a timing issue, or if it was a local person, we wouldn't announce it publicly. But I think it should be part of the minutes that we made that decision, because it was a decision that we made.
It has to be.
It should have
Has to
been,
be.
yeah.
after you came out of executive.
No, it was, and I know, I haven't passed it along to our minute taker at the moment.
Oh,
But I want it to be, but I wanna make sure that's fine with
Yeah.
us. Sometimes we've done it
Yeah.
because it's a local person and it's a courtesy because.
They haven't left their job yet, yeah.
This person is out safe, so I just wanted to confirm that. I hadn't had an opportunity to talk about that until now. So I just wanna make sure, and then I'll get both sets of minutes.
yeah, and that's
This
one
meeting.
thing you should think about is. It used to be the TA that actually put what the decision was made in the executive session on the minutes.
Yes.
It wasn't the minute taker.
No, and I still do that. I generally give the information in terms of going in and coming out, but I would put the decision. We actually haven't, where we've made decisions, it's usually just discussion about things. So this happened to be one, or it was, and I have that in.
Okay. So no minute,
No, next week
all right,
or 2 weeks from now. it'll be-
yeah, I was gonna say, this is worse than budget time. Authorized warrants and any liquor or tobacco licenses.
No liquor, or tobacco.
No
Joe,
warrants are here, and I'm not sure, I signed it, the only one that signed it so far. I'm gonna cross my name out. Look, I got the budget report, I don't wanna be in debt.
You won't be.
No, we're good.
Okay, yeah, it's $74,367.22.
All right, and no liquor or tobacco.
no.
All right, select board roundtable. Joel,
I got nothing tonight, I'm going home. Sorry,
Jessica,
Wow.
anyway, you guys find that out.
Do you want sunshine?
Nothing from China.
nothing from China. Michelle,
Ian, you got that email from the Lincoln TA I sent you, right?
Yes, I haven't, I need to dig into that. Yeah, but I did
All right.
receive that.
That's fine. Other than that, I got nothing.
Ian,
Nothing from me.
Oh, Michelle, I did send you the spreadsheet with our comments on your questions on the budget.
Yeah, I saw that and I replied and said, I'm not gonna be in there tonight. Just throw it in my box.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And in the interest of time, I am good. No, I don't have anything. Interim town administrators report.
We sort of talked a lot about a lot of the things I've been working on already this evening. We continue, as I mentioned, we have a West Street scoping study, sidewalk scoping study. That we'll be bringing to the June 23rd meeting for approval. Hopefully with, we have 4 proposals submitted. So we'll go through one of those. Frida, myself and AZ will make a decision and then bring that to you. Upcoming, let's just take a look here.
Yes, I do.
Finalize the water and sewer budget next meeting.
Yes. Yep, we'll have the details for that. Coming up, let's take a look, 23rd. Yeah, we'll have the public sewer, then we'll have our various inspection reports. I'm getting them from Steve. And potentially have the discussion and approval of the bylaw amendment for the electric vehicle charging. That project's still ongoing. We haven't heard anything from the contractor for that. That's a private project, but we sort of want to make sure that the bylaw is approved to be able to allow that kind of charging station here in the town. And then I've been working on, I'll just share quickly, trying to piece together, share this. There we go. Like a way to look at the timeline of projects. And again, this is sort of the complexity of having all these different projects. So I'm trying to put together at least one document that we could look at that shows you where we are. And so this is just using sort of like a Gantt chart kind of thing. And this is putting in projects that we're working on at the moment, but also having enough detail in them where it actually sees where we are in the different stages. So we've put in, I've got the water district at the top here. And so we've begun that obviously a couple of years ago. Here we are now with this stage for phase 2. And if we drill down, let me go this way into this details out, this sort of takes Steve's document and details out where we are. So this is all the process that we've gone through. This is where we're at the moment. We're going to start to be moving to easements, the bid process and the award, materials, and then construction. So our construction then goes out until the end of 2027. And then we do it all again for phase 3, which is the next one here, and then again for phase 4. So you can see with our Rockydale, we're out here to the end of July, end of December 2029 with that project. With other projects, and this is all broken down by fund. So our capital road fund, we've got our Mountain Street stormwater improvement scoping study. We also have our Basin Street project. And so this gives you a fairly detailed timeline for Basin Street. And this is based on Du Bois King's different phasing. So project definition, we're in our phase B, project design. This is where we're at now. So the next thing up is the right of way acquisition process. And then in where are we looking at here? Middle of next year, we're into our construction phase, May to October. That's what they've planned out. So that's Capitol Road. We've got Capitol Sidewalk. We have an Airport Drive project, which is going on at the moment.
I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah, so we're at that. We've had our kickoff meeting, and then we're into design and engineering services. Fuss and O'Neill, who are also working on the bridge project for Harvey Road. They're the ones we picked for Airport Drive. And this was a process working with the planning. It wasn't that we put an RFP out and then received proposals. It was through the state. So the state's already vetted engineers, and you pick one of those engineers to be able to move the project forward. And we have a project manager who's working on that.
Is that projected built of 26 or 7?
Potentially 26. We don't have a proposal yet for that.
I thought it was supposed to be by this end of this year.
Yeah, that's
So-
what we're shooting for. That's what we'd like.
So are we gonna do any just general maintenance, new sidewalks in the other parts of town that need it?
There's nothing on the docket at the moment.
Or do we want to? I guess that would be my select board concern. Are we roundtable? Do we want to do some this year?
There definitely are some that could be done. I think, given the amount of projects that are happening, it's gonna be hard to put that together.
I'm just not a grant project, just out of our
I
capital
know.
sidewalk budget. You know, we
We don't have the time to put it together, is what he's saying.
Right. I mean, I definitely want to have that happen, and I know we've been off by a couple of years. It's just there's a lot of stuff going on trying to get a handle on that. And I think it would be in a better place next year to be able to pick the sections that we want.
Okay.
But I know that also too, we were looking at Garfield, but I think Pleasant Street.
West Pleasant is
I know,
West Pleasant from the
Yeah.
west half of from Maple to down to Munsell. That going up from Munsell up for about 200 feet is really, really.
yeah, no, I
And
know.
that's a school walk.
So yeah, the Airport Drive, the West
I
Street,
can
West
write that
Street,
proposal by noon tomorrow.
scoping
Looking to
study,
put 200 feet in.
skate park project, and then Capitol Building has our two projects, Holly Hall and the library, and where those phases are. So at least a way that we can sort of see the big picture of everything that's happening and going on and where our deadlines are. And that's all for me.
Generator.
Generator, I sent you the details of what, I talked to Jill about that on Saturday when we spoke. So I emailed you some details of what her thoughts were. So probably starting at around 10,000. If we want to sell that, I don't know if the party is interested in that price, but that Jill felt that was a fair price.
I had another person look at it on Saturday as well,
Okay.
so.
Yeah.
So is that our old generator at the?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, Peter called because he happened to be at the location, someone was interested. And so asked me, I sort of called Jill and spoke with her briefly on Saturday and got her thoughts. We got more details about the generator itself, how it was maintained. And so she felt around the $10,000 mark for that machine would be a good starting point.
So how do we want to handle it?
I would say if you have two interested parties, maybe just let them know. I don't think it has to go more detailed than if you already have parties involved that are interested.
And if they wanna do sealed bids to you or whatever, I think that's what we've done before with other equipment.
Okay.
And then we open
You
them.
say
and see.
minimum bid.
Yeah,
Figure I got plenty of pictures if you want them.
Oh, they
See that in
first, yeah.
person.
okay,
They
yeah.
both
no,
looked
just do
at
that,
it in
just
person.
have them both bid on it and see what they offer. But I think, hoping obviously to get.
Well, I think, well, we reserve the right to
Reject any and all.
any and all
Yeah.
bids, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Other business correspondence,
Not really, no.
executive session,
Yes.
Michelle.
Hey, I hope this is short. I make a motion to enter executive session to discuss personnel matters per 1 VSA section 313. Your section
Second.
is an 8. On our team. I'm like,
Motion second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay, motion carried.
Super.
Good night,
Thank you.
Brad. Good night, Jimmy. Good
Sure.
night, Eric.
Okay. People, spook, Brett's gone, that's me, and that's Michelle, we're gonna stop.